It was just an above-average day at the White House when your favorite president was catching up on the news. When suddenly, oh, Mr. President, there's a deadly virus from China taking American lives. Oh, China, gross. This sounds like a job for Super Trump.
Oh, Super Trump! Oh no!
Bam!
Oh.
Pow!
No, arigato!
Boobs. But then the worst possible thing happened. Oh no, I've been infected with the deadly China virus from China. Gross. So the very strong, heroic Super Trump went to the hospital. Some even thought the China virus had defeated him. But on the third day, he rose from Walter Reade, and the China virus cried like a little infectious bitch. Oh, and the Cuomo brothers too. So Super Trump knocked them unconscious, blammo, and threw them all the way to the planet Mars.
I'm slightly confused.
Super Trump!
All right, glad to be with you. There's an intro. If our guest is still on the line, we'll be back with our drinking game rules, the hashtags, the promo codes. But right now, for a little bit of pre-gaming, we have the very fetching, always lovely, if she's there, hopefully, Miss Megyn Kelly. Are you there?
Hey, I'm here. How you guys doing?
Well, not so good now that I'm on a split screen with you and I have these thighs. So I appreciate you making the time.
I feel totally underdressed, I gotta say. I should have brought my A game.
Well, I appreciate it because you are underdressed and I'm disgusted. But let me ask you this. By the way, your YouTube is Megyn Kelly and the Twitter is Megyn Kelly. She's been doing some wonderful work, which we'll get to in a second. Also, your exclusive interview with Tara Reade, because that's incredibly relevant tonight. But Megyn, I wanted to ask you something as someone who's moderated these debates in the past, specifically watched Pence there on stage in person. What do you expect to go down tonight?
I think it's basically the Hippocratic Oath, do no harm, right? And especially if you're Kamala Harris, because they're winning, right? They're ahead in all the latest polls by a lot. So if I were her, I'd want to be just as quiet and as meek as possible. This is not the time to come out and prove what a strong woman you are. It's like, I'm invisible, and the more he talks, the better off I am. It's fine. I don't have to say much. And Pence, he needs to be the statesman, sort of the yin to Trump's yang, and remind people that he can be serious and he can be solid, and he's not going to be, with the hands and the mask, and he's going to be like the one that people can count on in a time of, crisis. And I think that's really all it is. It's about optics of him seeming serious and like the adult in the White House, and her being like, I'm not even here. It's all about Trump.
Oh, my gosh. You got to go back to that. That's a Slate article waiting to happen, Megyn Kelly. Megyn Kelly says woman should be meek.
It's smart. It would be smart. I think Joe Biden did the right thing, too. But if I were him, I would have been even more silent at that last debate. Just like, let Trump be Trump and let him remind everybody that, he does things that are controversial. And you just be over there like, oh, me? I'm just going to sip my latte. I'm going to eat my kale. Whatever.
That's a horrible stereotype, of course, which is not accurate of all Black/Indian people. But did you just advocate did you just advocate that Vice President Pence do jazz hands? Is that what I saw you do? Jazz hands? Like, this is going to stop?
Today, Trump gave that impromptu statement at the White House, and he was out in front of the White House. And my kids and he had like the full body shot. And if you just, I challenge you to put that on and just keep doing everything he did in unison with them. It was crazy. It was like out of hand.
Yeah. It's like he's just for your kids doing a sing-along. Just follow the bouncing palm. How would you grade, and I know this is tough for you, Megyn, because you've worked with him, and obviously now you do so much on your own at youtube.com/Megyn Kelly. Do we need to say the .com/? Just YouTube Megyn Kelly.
Don't even push people there. Push people to my podcast, which I just launched. So
tell us.
Megyn Kelly Show.
What was that? So can you say it one more time?
Go to the podcast and search for a Megyn Kelly Show. We made it very easy for me. We kind of idiot-proofed it. So just MEGYN Kelly Show, and there I'll be. And then subscribe.
And it's banned. So you shouldn't have been a guest. You should not have been a freaking guest.
Bad idea.
How would you grade Chris Wallace's performance with the last debate? Because obviously there was a lot of fallout where people didn't think he was. I don't think he was particularly unbiased. I don't think it was as bad as people said. I do think he stepped in to save Biden, which, in my opinion, is not a very good look.
So, okay, that's where I can defend him on the stepping in to save Biden on a couple of times when he was on the ropes. Because as the moderator, when the time is ticking away and one candidate won't be quiet or keeps interrupting, all you're thinking is, holy shit, I've lost total control of this hour. I'm not going to get to this entire list of questions. The debate is going to feel unfair because I needed to get to this part. So all you're really looking to do when it's gone on too long is shut them up so you can move on. And so I think a couple times he was just trying to wrap Trump and Biden so he could just move on. And in an attempt to do that, he kind of quickly gave it to Biden. And that wound up looking bad for Chris. But I think the areas where the fair criticisms of Chris had to do with how some of the questions were loaded with information that was obviously bad for Trump and not really fair to Trump. Like, you wouldn't condemn white supremacy and what happened at Charlottesville. And, it was sort of written by somebody who had been accepting the New York Times headlines, which is not like him.
Yeah, well, I don't just think it was, would you condemn white supremacy, which Donald Trump has done many times, but saying, would you condemn white supremacy? Sure. The Proud Boys. And listen, there are valid criticisms against the Proud Boys. Namely, I just don't like joining large groups of people because I don't like gangs. But white supremacy is not one of them. I mean, the guy who runs it is a black Cuban right now. So that's one of those things that Americans who know about the Proud Boys, who watch that interview, go, okay, even if I don't like the Proud Boys, that was a really unfair intermingling of two separate points, but forcing one answer.
I mean, honestly, I, like most people, just assumed it was some white supremacy group because Biden specifically threw it out when Trump was like, name one. And I follow the news, and even I was like, Proud Boys, what do they do? I know there's so many groups, it's hard to keep track. But they've gotten the best press of their life the last week, right? Like that now it's like everybody knows who they are. But my own read of that moment with Trump was, Chris asked him, will you condemn white supremacy? And he says, sure. And then what happens next? He and Biden at the same time go, do it now. Now, in what land does anybody think Donald Trump is going to respond well to that?
Right.
He doesn't like to look weak. He doesn't like to be controlled by other people. He hates the media. He hates his opponent. And I think he was just sort of trying to get like, I'm not gonna be your little puppet. I said sure, that's good enough. Let's move on.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's like, do it. What's this? The children of the corn? What of us? What of? Go screw yourself. It's true. He doesn't like doing what people tell him to do, and I do think that it was a pretty fair response. Sorry, go ahead.
Dare, and like when you're a kid, and you take Dare, and they want you to like roll around in the mud or whatever they want you to do, and they're like, do it, and then you're suddenly like, I don't like you, and I don't like this game, and peace out.
Is that how girls play Truth or Dare? Is roll around in the mud? Because we had very different childhoods. It's disgusting. Men are disgusting. I'm sure you're married to one, so but our Truth or Dare was really bordering on criminal. It was actually criminal.
Not anymore. It's different now in 2020. You're not allowed to even think about another person at all.
Yeah, always go with truth. Always go with truth and then just lie. That's how you win that game.
Why did I only learn this in my fourth, almost fifth decade of life?
That's because girls are earnest, right? Girls mature earlier, and for some reason that maturity comes with this idea that they have to be honest and they'll get into less trouble. We know that it's always better to not get caught, largely because we probably get our asses beaten by our moms more than girls, and rightfully so. Let me ask you this. Tara Reade, obviously, sexual allegations against Joe Biden, and you had an exclusive interview. We had you on the show when that happened. What do you think about, was it NBC or ABC running it on their Australian network and not
60 minutes, Australia?
Yeah. It was 60 Minutes, right. I always get 60 Minutes and Charlie Rose confused because I can't tell the difference between fossils. So what do you... what's your read on that, and how much relevance do you think it plays into any of this, considering that Kamala Harris said she believed Biden's accusers?
So, that interview will have nothing to do with anything tonight because it was in Australia, and people aren't even watching, American 60 Minutes as much as they used to, never mind the Australian version. And I do think a lot of people saw that Tara Reade interview that I did because I put it on YouTube, but most people just grabbed it. All the television networks grabbed it, and it was actually wound up being seen by way more than people who watch 60 Minutes. We did the numbers. It's like almost 30 million. So they're aware of her. The electorate is aware of her. But the media has avoided that story like the plague. I mean, like Trump coughing all over the Rose Garden right now. I mean, they are like, no, Tara Reade, we don't want to talk about it. Right. And I feel bad for this woman because it took guts to come forward. I mean, assuming she's telling the truth, it took guts to come forward. If you assume she's not telling the truth, she at least deserves a fair hearing. And we were lectured about that at length during the Brett Kavanaugh hearings, and they just wouldn't give her the time of day. So I don't think you're going to get a Tara Reade question at any debate at all.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I know wishful thinking. Let me ask you this, kind of shifting pace there, because you mentioned Brett Kavanaugh and kind of getting into the legal side. You obviously have a legal background. What do you think about the declassifying right now with all the sort of, I guess, Russiagate, Spygate, whatever you want to call it at this point, all of these documents? Do you think that was planned as an October surprise from the Trump camp, and is it too little, too late? Do you think it'll have any kind of an effect, or even I don't suspect it'll come up tonight?
I do think it was planned, or it was they knew about it, and the timing is not a coincidence, and it's probably not the only thing to come out, but I don't think it's going to do anything. I mean, you tell me the media outlet other than maybe Fox, maybe even the Washington Examiner, I don't even know if the Journal will go with it, that's really going to pump that story. The media is all in for Biden. They don't want to hear anything that's bad for him or good for Trump. Their coverage thus far has been 90% bad for President Trump, all along negative about President Trump. So why would they change this close out from the election? They're clearly dying for Biden to win.
Yeah, no, I think you're. I think the only way maybe it would be undeniable is if something comes out where Biden knew about it as well, and they would have to ask him directly. You know, something sort of popped up in the documents that no longer are redacted.
Steve, remember what happened with when President Trump made a major step toward not achieving peace in the Middle East, but a major step toward it. It was nowhere. No, they barely wrote about it. You wouldn't know he did anything. I actually follow the podcast The Daily. That's the New York Times podcast every day.
Apologies.
And it's interesting. You know, I like to keep an eye on what they're doing, what they're saying. They've never covered it. Never once. They were talking about, I don't know, some genocide in some country nobody's ever heard of. They never talked about the Middle East or what just happened. It was like, all right, well, I'll wait.
What about Hunter Biden's $3 million from the Moscow widow to do blow off sex slaves' hip bones? Did that pop up in the New York Times podcast? I don't listen.
No, they don't. I think they did a defense of Hunter Biden when that story first came out, and I haven't heard about Hunter since then. You know, they usually switch when there's news like that to the pandemic. Back to the pandemic, which is the bad story for Trump.
Right. And by the way, I appreciate that you do listen to the other side. I actually have always told people this. I listen to the most biased liberal shows that I can, because that way at least I know what I'm getting. There isn't spin. And that used to be really, I would watch O'Donnell, I would watch Maddow, Oberman when he was still a thing, you know, the Young Turks, Reade Slate and Salon. But now CNN suffices. Really, CNN suffices as a fill-in for MSNBC. But the Daily is maybe one, from what you're telling me, that I should also be paying attention to.
I like the Daily because I don't have to deal with those personalities you just listed, which I have no desire to deal with, and I'm really not a consumer of their news product in quotes. What I really do is try to read as much as I can from the left and the right. And I go to realclearpolitics.com every morning, and they've collected editorials from left and right. And if you put one on top of the other on the same subject, a set of facts will emerge that you see the two sides apparently agree on, and you walk away a little smarter.
Yeah, I guess so. By the way, he's going to be competition to you, Keith Olbermann. Apparently, he'll be hosting some ESPN political show on YouTube. I don't know what kind of cosmic bunny hole I jumped into, where Keith Olbermann leaves a news network, goes to a sports network, to only have them relegate him to the online political news commentary on their YouTube channel. But that's where we are. He's
an angry guy, and like that's not my cup of tea either. I don't need more anger in my life. Who's looking for more anger, right? Like he's just dripping with it. And I remember talking a funny story about O'Reilly. I was talking to him one day, and I was saying, you know, would you ever leave Fox for another network? And he said, sure. And he's like, you know, if I couldn't work out a deal here, I'd go to CNN or MSNBC. This is 10 years ago. And I said, really? I go, MSNBC? He said, yeah. I go, they'd have to fire Olbermann first. And he said, they'd have to set him on fire.
Right, yeah. And he would be delivering a soliloquy while on fire. I've never felt such flammable content to these degrees before. I don't believe that this is like, all right, shut up and just burn. I know that I did a fake documentary on Keith Olbermann it was played by yours truly, and he was pissed. I heard through the grapevine. Okay, Megyn Kelly, final prediction. We do have to get going here. Who do you think comes out the victor tonight? And then plug your juicy podcast one more time. That is not the Daily.
I think Mike Pence is going to do better. I just do. I think he's a great debater. He's totally self-controlled. He's articulate. He doesn't fumble for his words. And the only way, you know, she's going to really fall down and mess it up is if she gets too loud and too aggressive and calls too much attention to herself. I think she should be quiet and let her boss keep winning, and he should be the smooth, reassuring second in command.
But she can do all those things with one laugh. It's like it'll be like Mystic Pizza. So I don't know. It is the Megyn Kelly Show on podcasts available, Apple, Android, wherever podcast. Megyn, thank you so much for coming in. We appreciate it, and thanks for lending your expertise.
Thanks for having me. What do you have under that robe?
Well, this is actually I actually
don't show
had
it.
regulation boxing shorts, and Ted Cruz was on the the last stream, and then I realized that there's a reason boxers don't wear those shorts seated this way. They're typically standing in the ring. So these are actually the new and improved. But these are my hairy melting pot Scottish, German, Irish thighs. So play more where that came from. You play your cards right. Thank you, Megyn Kelly. You are welcome. We must go. Be well. Let's go to the intro and come on in with the drinking game rules. Glad to be with you. Oh, that was an abrupt. Hopefully you get the soundboard working better than that. All right.
Mike
that
Pence.
was what is this?
Well, that was
Mike Pence.
Mike Pence.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, that was
Metallica
very
thing.
stagnant.
Yeah.
The song went longer than I thought.
By the way, really quickly, it is Crowder Debate Stream, the hashtag Crowder Debate Stream. If you go to louderwithcrowder.com/mugclub, you will get $20 off for the next 24 hours. And my half-Asian lawyer, Bill Richmond, is here. He can confirm that our page on Facebook has been throttled for citing CDC statistics. So if you're trying to watch on Facebook, really, listen, it's a 50-50 shot that this stream
we'll
gets
see.
pulled or not. So we just please ask that you join Mug Club. It'd be like someone walked into your work and said, hey, there's going to be a pay, we have to make some pay cuts. Like, oh my gosh, what's it going to be? Well, it could be 5%, could be 45%. I don't know. Like, well, which is it? That's what I'm telling you. All right, see ya.
That's what I'm saying.
That's what happens when Facebook and YouTube decide to throttle us. But we're working on it, right there, Half Asian Bill?
Yes, if I leave suddenly in the middle, you'll know something is afoot.
And if I leave suddenly in the middle, it's because I have a stomach bug.
Oh,
Don't worry, it's not the COVID.
No.
It's
Oh,
not
good.
the COVID.
That's good.
Well, at
Hey,
least-
speaking of which, do you know that on this day in history, last week, Donald Trump was diagnosed with COVID, and now it's like it never happened.
Wow. That's great.
Like a fart in the wind. It's gone.
He's back in the office, ready to go.
Gerald A. is here. How are you?
Yes,
How's
I'm
father
doing-
treating you?
It's fantastic.
Very
It's a
nice.
month old right now.
By the way, we're also going to have the
doesn't
the
care.
costume contest. Yeah, I'm not that
Not,
interested.
not so much.
Babies bore me
Luke, it's okay,
unless they're
buddy.
my own. At least that's what I'm told, and I hope it's correct. Otherwise, it'll be tossed out a window.
Ouch.
Oh.
No,
There's
it'll
a
be
fire station down the
into
street.
a bouncy hop.
No, you just do the Michael Jackson. You hang him out the window.
Right.
Show him off.
Show 'em
Wow.
off.
Or you just do the Michael Jackson story you never heard of. You just toss a
no,
kid in the chimpanzee cage.
Oh, wow.
Don't irritate him.
Oh, Bubbles.
Don't give him any Jesus juice.
Bubbles, no.
Was it Bubbles?
It was Bubbles.
That chimp was vicious as hell. From what I
Oh,
understand.
my
too. There was a
God.
documentary.
Oh,
Like,
it's a
don't
chimp.
go near the chimp cage. I gave him Jesus juice and Xanax. I'm like, of course you didn't, Michael. Oh no. But let's forgive it all because let's forgive the fact that he was a glorified pedophile with an ice cream truck because he wrote
true.
Smooth Criminal. Louderwithcrowder.com also /Whitmer Death Toll, where you can go and submit your own FOIA request and print your Whitmer Death Toll posters. There have been a lot of those in Michigan right now, and the Supreme Court just struck down her unconstitutional executive orders.
Right.
Costume contest after this, of course, where we will give the winner a lock of Gerald's hair. Drinking game rules. Let's bring them up.
No, we're not.
Drinking game rules. Anytime the vice president gets a leading unfair question, he has to defend Trump's character, or the moderator teams up with Kamala, and you hear this ding, you are to drink. Anytime Kamala Harris gets a softball question, dodges a question, cackles evilly, not sure if that's spelled correctly, or tries to be hip, namely listing rappers who've been dead for the last 2.5 decades as their currently active favorite rapper,
Very likely
then you have
that'll
to just
happen.
down your drink.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, this is what I think tonight, and then I want to go to you guys because the stream's about to start really quickly. As far as what Pence needs, he needs a tie. He needs a tie because there's the identity politics of white straight male, and then there's white Pence. And he is very good at staying on point, but Kamala Harris is a dirty fighter. She's very aggressive as a prosecutor, right? But she doesn't do so well on her heels. And so I think what Pence needs to do is be disciplined, but tear a little bit of a page from Trump's book, really more a page from Andrew Breitbart's book, and cut her off at the pass. If she starts bringing up white supremacy, he can just, hey, Kamala, do you believe I'm a white supremacist? Why are you asking me that? If not, stop wasting my time. So he needs to just sort of swat it down, right, paw it away, and go right down the middle. What do you think, Half Asian Bill?
I think if Kamala isn't ready to answer some of those really tough questions that she got during the early debates, she's going to have a big problem. I think she will have prepared a lot, especially remember the Tulsi
only one
Gabbard
she did answer was
right.
that Joe Biden's a racist and rapist.
Well, she was
a rapey Jim Crow.
Very clear on that one. So I think that's absolutely right. But, look, Mike Pence has a lot of appeal to certain groups. Unfortunately, albinos don't vote a lot. So he's going to have to really give some credibility here if he wants to at least hit a top.
Right now, there's some guy at home with his eyebrows look like they were burned off like Dark Man. What do you think there?
I think that Pence is the respectable side of the ticket. He was brought on in 2016 to give Trump a little bit more of a kind of conservative face, and I think that's his role here. He's got to be firm, but he also has to be respectable.
But
and Donald
I don't think
Trump
that
didn't
matters
do
so
that.
much because Donald Trump has been the most conservative president in modern history.
No, I know, but I think
this
No,
now,
but that's why he was
people-
brought in. But I'm saying I don't think he needs to play that role of conservative enforcer anymore.
Right.
He needs to really just play the role of enforcer against Kamala Harris.
Well, he's got to be careful. He can't look like another version of Donald Trump. He's got to look like somebody who's a little bit more humble and a little bit more ready to pounce when the information is incorrect, but let you speak long enough to hang yourself.
He needs to
essentially.
front load it heavy with facts. In other words, come out and rat-tat-tat-tat-tat, and then give her enough space so that way he can cut her off at the pass, and then he can be mobile, he can be fleet of foot, so that he can move around her a little bit, but he's got to come out and front load it. Be front heavy with the facts, with the information. Every answer he gives, 2 reasons. That then allows him to be a little more flexible so that he can show that he can go off book, because I think it's a question mark with Vice President Pence, as well as if he is going to have to fight off Kamala Harris and a moderator, it allows him to get his info out, and then it's less consequential. So hopefully people there are taking notes. It's Dana Bash.
Oh no!
I hope he pisses her off, by the way. I really do. I hope he gets under her skin.
But
because
politely.
By,
Like, if you
by
could do
not,
it, like,
by
with
not
love.
responding maybe the way that she wants when she throws something out there. But I hope she gets riled, because when she does, she is
She
at
should
her
just throw
unlikable
something
best.
out there,
Right?
notably a weighted tin cup.
Yeah.
That's what she should. I expect her to go identity politics a little bit. What she does need to do is she does need to resolve some sort of conflicting agendas, right? This sort of radical progressive left agenda, and then there's the sort of establishment agenda, right? People try to say she's a moderate, where I think she was actually rated as the most liberal member of the Senate.
Right.
If you change the definition
Not
of
including
moderate.
favors to Willie Brown. And then she has, of course, this really crazy, harsh agenda, a long track record as a prosecuting attorney. And here's something, too. Giuliani made a good point about this. He said, as someone who's been a prosecutor, we've seen people like Kamala Harris. They're what we call lazy. They pad their records. She would arrest people who were nonviolent drug offenders to pad her record and let the big fish get away. And he coughed. So, and I think that's true. People need to know that. Kamala Harris has done more to mass incarcerate nonviolent drug offenders, people of color, and enslave them really to the state beyond their sentence in some cases, and let the big criminals who are causing real damage go.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think she has a leg to stand on with her record.
Let the lawyer speak.
He
You don't
he
know
took
anything
time.
about law.
No,
I
I'm
don't,
deferring to the man in the
Don't
yellow
defer.
hat.
I reclaim
Don't
my
defer,
time.
don't confer, just throw a fur at him. I'd like to see a pelt.
Wow.
Hit him in the. Oh, hold on a second. They might be walking out. And if they then you missed your chance, half Asian Bill.
No, I got my chance. Here it is. Kamala was attacked repeatedly for failing to actually articulate some good planks, some positions, something.
Yeah.
Biden also failed to do that. So unless she has done something in the last couple of months to learn what her positions are and come out there and articulate them clearly, she will fail to, again, inspire anyone to come out and vote. And that's what this will turn into, is turnout.
Yeah, and I noticed they have plexiglass between them because that stops a virus. But I'm hoping that someone gets checked into the boards like a roller hockey.
That would be fantastic.
That would be
why,
great,
why do they
actually.
have
I'd like
desks? Why aren't they standing?
Well, there's only
I'm not sure.
plexiglass to their sides.
I know.
Yeah.
So,
So
and then most of
they're
their talking is
speaking-
going to be directly
Because
to the
microscopic
camera.
aerosol particles can't, they can't just like look around
They can't
first.
bob and
Oops.
weave.
It's going to hit the
Yeah.
moderator and bounce
Yeah.
off and get
I think the New York Times even did an article saying that wasn't going to do anything. But hey, thanks for trying.
I will say this about, and again, the hashtag is Crowder Debate Stream. You get $20 off if you join up there. Oh, wait.
There it is.
Want to know how I
From
got
the
these
University
scars?
of Utah in Salt Lake City, welcome to the first and only vice presidential debate of
Love that I keep stressing.
2020.
Don't worry,
Sponsored by the
it's the
Nonpartisan
only.
Commission on Presidential Debates. I'm Susan Page of USA Today. It is my honor to moderate this debate, an
not our
important
honor to
part
have you
of our
moderating the
democracy.
debate.
Nay.
In Kingsbury Hall tonight, we have a small and socially distant audience, and we've taken extra precautions during this pandemic.
Mentally distant
Among other
audience.
things, everyone in the audience is required to wear a
Did you see
face
the kids
mask,
with, did you
and
see
the
them with
candidates
masks on
will
earlier?
be
The
seated
audience
12
talk about
feet
low
apart.
energy. They looked like kids who wanted to go on the
audience is
roller coaster and instead got
enthusiastic
put in the
about
merry-go-round.
their
You know, it's
But
like,
they've agreed to express
my mom
that
made me do this for the
enthusiasm
photo.
only twice, at the end of the debate, and now when I introduce the candidates. Please welcome California Senator Kamala Harris and Vice President Mike Pence.
right here, we've got the contrast. We've got the G.I. Joe lookalike and the generically ethnic on a Gap ad. Your guess is as good as mine. First POS candidate.
POC. Person
Yeah,
of color.
no, exactly. Ooh, but she wore the high heels just to
Oh boy.
dig the knife. into
Senator
Pence
Harris
a
and
little
Vice
bit.
President Pence, thank you for being here.
A little bit height challenged.
We're meeting as President Trump and the First Lady continue to undergo treatment in Washington after testing positive for COVID-19. We send our thoughts and prayers to them for their rapid and
No, you
complete recovery
Thoughts and
and for the
prayers.
recovery
Thought
of
those were
everyone
terrible.
Yeah, I
afflicted
thought
by
those
the
didn't count.
coronavirus. The two campaigns and the Commission on Presidential Debates have agreed to the ground rules for tonight. I'm here to enforce them on behalf of the millions of Americans who are watching.
Jeez.
One note, no one in either
to enforce them,
campaign
yeah.
or
She's
at
the
the
prison guard
commission
you want at the
or
last
anywhere
hole
else
with the
has
final
been
rubber
told in
bullet.
advance
Hey, guys,
what
one,
topics I'll raise or what
two.
questions I'll ask. This 90-minute debate will be divided into 9 segments of about 10 minutes each. I'll begin a segment by posing a question to each of you, sometimes the same question, sometimes a different question on the same topic. You will then have 2 minutes to answer without interruption by me or the other candidate. Then we'll take 6 minutes or so to discuss the issue. At that point, although there will always be more to say, we'll move on. to the
Is she
next
reading
topic.
out the rule card to risk?
We want a debate that is
You think Trump's
lively.
watching
think
this
it's
with a
riveting.
But
vat?
Americans also deserve a discussion.
Trump's like, I missed
is
that
civil.
part.
These are
no
tumultuous
interruptions.
times.
Light her
We can
up,
and will
Pansy.
have a respectful exchange about the big issues facing our nation.
I feel 40.
Let's begin with the ongoing
writing down
pandemic
notes
that has
already?
cost our country
She's taking
so
notes.
much.
She's fixing
we'll
her
have
rules
2 minutes?
already.
In her
Senator
row.
Harris, the coronavirus is not under control. Over the past week,
not?
Johns Hopkins reports that
Leading
39
question, Ding.
states have had more COVID
boy.
cases over the past 7 days than in the week before. 9 states have set new records. Even if a vaccine is released soon, the next administration will face hard choices.
COVID is the topic.
What would a Biden administration do in January and February
that's a
that a
terrible
Trump
girl.
administration wouldn't do? Would you impose new lockdowns for businesses and schools and hotspots? A federal mandate to wear masks?
Lockdown.
You have 2 minutes to respond
is a good
without
question.
interruption.
Thank you, Susan. Well, the American people have witnessed
She's an
what
anti-vaxxer,
is
by the way, if the
the
vaccine's
greatest
available. She said she wouldn't
failure
trust it.
of any presidential administration in the history of our country. And here are the facts. 210,000 dead people in our country in just the last several months. Over 7 million people who have contracted this disease. 1 in 5 businesses closed. We're looking at
fault is
frontline
that?
workers who have been
Yeah.
treated like
virus did
sacrificial
this?
workers. We are looking at over 30 million people
Shaking his head.
who in the last several months had to file for unemployment. And here's the thing. On January 28th, the vice president and the president were informed about the nature of this pandemic. They were informed that it's lethal in consequence, that it is airborne, that it will affect young people,
Incorrect.
and that it would
Incorrect.
be
airborne. That's
contracted
only. Let's
because
fact
it
check
is
that. That's only
airborne.
recently.
That's
That's
recent,
the idea
yeah.
of airborne is
And they
aerosol
knew
particles,
what was
not
happening, but they
droplets.
didn't
Let's be
tell
really clear
you.
about that.
Can
That
you
is
imagine
incorrect.
if you knew on
WAPO better
January
fact check
28th,
that.
as
PolitiFact
opposed
meter,
to
whichever one
March
uses the
13th,
Pinocchios or the
what
meter.
they knew,
All
what
of them
you
better
wanted
break.
them to
Better be a
hear.
broken wooden nose
They knew and they
and
covered it up.
a meter that doesn't work.
The president said it was a hoax. They
Never said it
minimized
was a
the
hoax.
seriousness
No,
He
he
said
of
the
it.
didn't.
media
The president
using
said,
it. This was
you're
their
on
new
one
hoax.
side of his ledger. If you wear a mask, you're on the other side of his ledger. if you don't. And in spite of all of that, today they still don't have a plan. They
Still no answer
don't
to
have
the
a plan.
question.
Well, Joe Biden does.
She's
And our
really
plan is
avoiding
about
answering any of her
what we
policies.
need to do around a national strategy.
Banned travel to China, declared it a national public health emergency. They invoked the Defense Production Act. They got PPE. They had to replenish the stockpiles from your candidate, right, who was vice president at that point in time. I mean, of course, you guys have done nothing. And by the way, Joe Biden was nowhere. He was nowhere. Instead, you let Nancy Pelosi go out like your proxy, telling people to go eat dumplings in Chinatown.
Thank you,
Their right to re-election based on this.
Thank you, Senator Harris.
Ooh, she's coming out
Vice President
dirty.
Pence, more than
swinging.
210,000 Americans have died of COVID-19 since February.
Why did you do this?
The U.S. death toll as a percentage of our
Drink, leading
population
question.
is higher than that of almost every other wealthy nation on Earth. For instance, our death rate is 2.5
when did that matter?
times that of Canada next door. You head
blame
the
New York
administration's
right now.
coronavirus task
Well,
force.
New York.
Why is the U.S. death toll as a percentage of our population higher than that of almost every other wealthy country? And you have 2 minutes to respond without interruption.
Susan, thank you. And I want to thank the Commission and the University of Utah for hosting this event. And Senator Harris, it's a privilege to be on the stage with you.
Now go straight for the throat.
And our nation has gone through a very challenging time this year.
I want
But I want the
on her
American
throat
people to
like
know
a rabid raccoon,
that
like you're a
from the very
Crockett hat.
first day, President Donald Trump has put the health of America first. Before there were more than 5 cases in the United States, all people who had returned from China, President Donald Trump did what no other American president had ever done. And that was he suspended all travel from
That's
China.
true.
the
You people
second
called him
largest
racist.
economy in the
Kind of
world.
like you called Joe Biden racist,
Now,
right, Kamala?
Senator Joe
Kinda your
Biden,
go-to.
Biden opposed
Also a rapist.
that decision. He said it was xenophobic and hysterical.
Hey, he read our fact
But I
sheet.
can tell you, having led the White House Coronavirus Task Force, that decision alone by President Trump bought us invaluable time to stand up the greatest national mobilization since World War II. And I believe it saved hundreds of thousands of American lives. Because with that time, we were able to reinvent
if you
testing.
trust
More than
the
115
science,
million
you would
tests
have
been
to
done
agree with him
today.
because it was supposed to be
We
over
were able
2.2
to
million
see
a day.
to the delivery of
Millions.
billions
your
of
number.
supplies so our doctors and nurses had the
it's
resources
coming
and support they needed. And we began really before the month of February was out to develop a vaccine and to develop medicines and therapeutics that have been saving lives all along the way. And under President Trump's leadership, Operation Warp Speed, we believe we'll have literally tens of millions of doses of a vaccine before the end of this
Which
year.
Kamala Harris will not take.
The reality is, when you look at the Biden plan, it reads an awful lot like what President Trump and I and our task force have been doing every
When we
step
get that,
of
I
the
know we
way.
can go to clip E1
And quite
and
frankly,
we have her saying she won't take
when
the
I
vaccine,
look at
but
their
not right
plan
now.
that talks
Just in
about
case you did.
advancing
Why do you
testing,
doubt your
creating
senses?
new PPE, developing a vaccine,
Is the vice president chewing tobacco?
it looks a little bit like plagiarism.
he's
which is something
chewing
Joe
that
Biden
ass.
knows a little bit about.
Oh.
And I think the
No, I mean
American
it. I mean it
people
in
know
a euphemism way, like you
this
just,
is
you
a
know, you
president
gotta get
who
it.
has
You gotta
put
get in that
America
asshole, Larry.
first
You get in
and
it. You spray paint.
people, I
Mike
believe with my
Pence
heart,
was here.
can be
Mike
proud
Pence,
of the
you chewing candy
sacrifices
bars,
they
even rappers
have
around and
made
shit.
to
Gotta get
save
up in that
countless
ass, Miss
American
Pence.
lives.
What the hell?
Senator Harris, would you like to
It's
respond?
okay. You don't catch cultural
Absolutely.
references.
Whatever the vice president is claiming the administration has done, clearly it hasn't worked. When you're looking at over 210,000 dead bodies in our country, American lives
They're not
2
in a
million,
pile.
that have been
210,
lost, families
low,
that are grieving
right?
that loss.
And that's
you
also
know,
from that's also
The vice
separated across
president is the head of the task
different flu
force
seasons, by the way. It's
Yeah.
just a never-ending
and
toll.
knew
How many would
on
she be okay
January
with?
28th
Yeah.
how serious this was.
Is
And
there a
then
number?
thanks to Bob Woodward, we learned
Numbers really
that they
more
knew
like
about it.
12,000
And then when that was
just died from COVID.
exposed,
The other remaining
the vice
200,000
president said,
were
when asked, well, why didn't y'all tell
2.6 average
anybody?
pre-existing
Yeah.
conditions.
he said, because the president wanted people to remain calm.
Well, let's get
No, we should cause a panic for a virus that, according to the CDC, if you're under 50, has a
You can have
statistical
15 more
100%
seconds,
survival
and
rate,
then we'll give the vice president a chance.
99.9998% survival rate if you're under the age of 50, even if you're a fat son of a bitch. We should
How
pay
calm
everybody
were you
panic!
when your kids were sent home from school
She
and
just
you
made
didn't
a
know when they
mistake.
could go back?
And the
How
moderator-
calm
Thank
were
you.
you
What did she
when
do?
your children
started
couldn't
interrupting
see
and
your
moderator
parents
gave
because
more time.
you were afraid they could kill them?
Didn't cut her off.
Let's give Vice President Pence a
See?
chance to respond. Vice
That was
President
very
Pence, you have
calm
1
by her.
minute
She
to
didn't
respond.
There's
jump
not a
in.
day gone by that I haven't thought of every American family that's lost a loved one. And I want all of you to know that
Good.
you'll always be in our hearts.
She was thinking of BJ's for mayors.
and in our prayers. But when you say what the American people have done over these last 8 months hasn't worked, that's a great disservice
Yeah.
for the sacrifices the American people have made.
I'm referring
The
to
reality,
the
if I may,
Shut up!
finish.
No, let her do this.
The reality is,
Terrible.
Dr. Fauci said everything that he told
She did
the
her little
president in the
biracial
Oval
Julia
Office,
Roberts
the president told the American people. Now, President Trump, I will tell you, has boundless confidence in the American people, and he always spoke with confidence that we'd get through this together. But when you say it hasn't worked, when Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx and our medical experts came to us in the second week of March, they said if the president didn't take the unprecedented step of shutting down roughly half of the American economy, that we could lose 2.2 million Americans.
Boom.
And that's the reality.
Thank you.
They also
Thank you,
said
Vice
to us if we did
President
everything
Vice
right,
President Pence
we could
keeps
still
us up
lose
to lock him away for
100,000
murder.
Americans.
Vice
Now,
President
one
Pence.
life lost is
Thank
too
you.
many, Susan. But the American people, I believe, deserve credit for the sacrifices that they have made, putting the health of their family and their neighbors first, our doctors, our nurses, our first
Thank you,
responders.
Vice President Pence.
And I'm going to speak up on behalf of what the American people have done.
Vice President Pence, you were in the front
Look, she's
row
smirking,
in a
laughing
Rose
at the
Garden
American
event 11
people.
days
She's like,
ago.
oh,
What
no.
seems to have been
Ooh,
a
that may have
super
worked with your-
spreader
with your
event for
slave-owning
senior
ancestors,
administration
but not
and
here.
congressional officials. No social distancing.
That's a tough history to have.
That is a
Few
tough history to
masks,
have.
and now a
they were proud
cluster
of
of
it.
coronavirus
profitable.
cases among
Very-
those who were there.
Some-
How can you expect Americans to follow the administration's safety guidelines to protect themselves from COVID when you at the White House have not been doing so?
Leading question, Drake.
Well, the American people have demonstrated over the last 8 months that when given the facts, they're willing to put the health of their families and their neighbors and people they don't even know first. And President Trump and I have great confidence in the American people and their ability to take that information and put it into practice. In the height of the epidemic, when we were losing a heartbreaking number of 2,500 Americans a day, we surged resources to New Jersey and New York and New Orleans
You had
and
to, 'cause
Detroit.
they
We
sent
told the
sick
American
people through
people
old
what
folks'
needed
homes
to
like
be done, and the
buzzsaws,
American
so-
people made the sacrifices.
And they
Didn't
rejected
have to
When
do
the
that in
outbreak in the
Texas.
Sun Belt happened this
Didn't have
summer,
to do that in
again,
Florida.
the American
Saving them
people
as much as
forward.
Cuomo was killing them.
But the
Florida
reality
is
is
death's
the work
waiting room.
of the President of the United States
people go
goes
there to
on.
die, I think.
A vacancy on the Supreme Court of the United States has come upon us, and the President introduced Judge Amy Coney
Yes,
Barrett.
thank you. Thank you, Vice
But at
President Pence.
that, if I may say, that Rose Garden event, there's been a great deal of speculation about it. My wife Karen and I were there and honored to be there. Many of the people who were at that event, Susan, actually were tested
Yes.
for coronavirus, and it was an outdoor event, which all of our scientists regularly and routinely advise. The difference here is President Trump and I trust the American people to make choices in the best interest of their health. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris consistently talk about mandates, and not just mandates with the coronavirus, but a government takeover
tell
of
you-
health
Thank
care.
you. Thank
the
you very
Green
much.
Pretty
New
well. He
Deal,
needs to be a little
all
bit more
government control.
short.
We're about
Yeah.
freedom,
A little more
respecting
succinct.
the
Yeah.
freedom of the American
But
people.
Let's talk about respecting the American people. You respect the American people when you tell them the truth. You respect the American people when you have the courage
Which we've
to be a
always
leader,
done.
speaking of those things that you may not want people to hear, but they need to hear so they can
Oh, by
protect
the way, what is the
themselves.
truth?
Come on.
What is the truth?
But
You're going to
this
pack the court,
administration
sweetheart?
stood on information that
You gonna pack
if
the
you
courts?
had as a parent, if you had as a
You wanna do it with the
worker
Electoral
knowing
College?
you didn't have enough money saved up, not understanding in a food line because of the ineptitude of an administration that was unwilling to speak the truth to the American people. So let's talk about caring about the American people. The American people have had to sacrifice far too much because of the incompetence of this administration. It is asking too much of the
They've
people.
had to sacrifice far too
It
much
is
in
asking
blue
too
states where
much
their
of the
economy
people.
is not recovering, and they have
They
higher
would
deaths
not
in states
be
like Texas and
equipped
Florida
with
that have not had
information
lockdowns.
they
So let's be really
need
clear.
to
It's not even
help
close.
themselves
It's not
to
even close.
protect their
Yeah.
parents
Incompetence
and
of
their
the
children.
governors.
Kamala Harris, Senator Harris, I'm sorry.
It's fine, I'm Kamala.
No, you're Senator Harris to me.
She's so likable.
That's the laugh.
Anthony Fauci and other experts say that most of the people who can be vaccinated
dare you
need
say
to be
that.
Here we
vaccinated.
go.
But half of Americans now say they wouldn't take a vaccine if it was released now.
That's because you're an anti-vaxxer.
If the Trump administration
Miss
approves a
slightly
vaccine
darker Jenny
before or after
McCarthy.
the election, should Americans take it, and would you take it?
If the public health professionals, if Dr. Fauci, if the doctors tell us that we should
Name me
take it, I'll be
another
the
one.
first in line to take it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Dr. Fauci,
But if Donald
any other
Trump
doctors
tells us
you know?
that we should take it, I'm
Little?
not taking it.
By
Vice
the way,
President,
related
there's been a lot of repercussions from
No,
this
it's Mr. Ed,
pandemic.
sorry.
In recent days, the president's diagnosis of COVID-19 has underscored the importance of the job
Really
that
quickly,
you hold
show that clip.
and that you are seeking.
I don't know how long it is.
That's
Clip
our
sheet
second
one of her
topic
saying she wouldn't
tonight.
take the vaccination.
It's the role of the vice president.
Let's just say there's a vaccine that is approved and even distributed before the election. Would you get it?
Well, I think that's going to be an issue for all of us. I will say that I would not trust Donald Trump, and it would have to be a credible source of information that talks about the efficacy and the reliability of whatever he's talking about. I will not take his word for it. He wants us to inject bleach. No, I will not take his word for it.
Because Donald Trump makes the vaccines.
All right, let's go back here.
Presidential
Now that we've
responsibility. And if
cut
not,
away from Chinlandia.
do you think you should? You have 2 minutes without interruption.
What was her
Well, Susan, thank you, although I would like to go back.
Do it.
I think we need to move on
well,
to the
thank
issue
you,
of
but I would like to go back,
Susan.
because the reality is
He's in
that we're
charge.
going to have a vaccine,
Yeah. Told her what we're gonna talk
Senator,
about.
in
It's like,
record
no, I'm gonna
time,
talk about what I
in
want to.
unheard of time, in less than a year. We have 5 companies in phase 3 clinical trials, and we're right now producing tens of millions of doses. So the fact that you continue to undermine public confidence in a vaccine, if the vaccine emerges during the Trump administration, I think is unconscionable. And Senator, I just ask you, stop playing politics with people's lives.
Oh.
The reality is that we will
Right
have
in
a
the
vaccine
baby maker.
before the end of this year. And it will have the capacity to save countless American lives. And your continuous undermining of confidence in a vaccine is it's just unacceptable. And let me also say, the reality is when you talk about failure in this administration, we actually do know what failure looks like in a pandemic. It was 2009. The swine flu arrived in the United States. Thankfully, it ended up not being as lethal as the coronavirus. But before the end of the year, when Joe Biden was vice president of the United States,
Yes.
not 7.5 million people contracted the swine flu.
Yes.
60 million Americans contracted the swine flu. Wow. If the swine flu had been as lethal as the coronavirus, in 2009, when Joe Biden was vice president, we would have lost 2
That one was
million
also your people,
American
half
lives.
Asian Bill.
His own chief of staff, Ron Klain, would say last year that it was pure luck
You give the worst gifts.
that they did, quote, everything possible wrong.
Chinese New Year.
Toss that
And
iPhone, then, asshole.
we learned from that. They left the strategic national stockpile empty. They left an
it is.
empty and hollow plan, but we
Thank you,
still
Vice
learned
President
from it.
Pence.
And I think
Look at her
American
laughing.
people
She doesn't know what to do.
You've been shot.
President
Come on,
Pence,
don't
I'm
laugh.
sorry.
You've been getting
we have
shot down
done.
with leg kicks,
Senator,
sweetheart.
please
Thank you, Vice
stop
She's going to be
undermining
limping into the
confidence in a
5th
vaccine.
round.
Senator Harris,
My
let me
calf's
ask you
so
the same question
swollen.
that I asked
No more than
Vice
usual. That's
President
not my
Pence, which is,
ankle. That's the
have
leg
you had a
kicks.
conversation or reached an agreement with Vice President Biden about safeguards or procedures when it comes to the issue of presidential disability? And if not, and if you win the election next month,
Susan, he's still learning
do
how
you
to use
think
Scotch
you
guard.
should?
So
You have 2
that
minutes
is,
uninterrupted.
safeguard.
So let me
will be
tell
on
you, first
purview.
of all, the day I got the call from Joe Biden, it
The
was
rapist?
actually a Zoom
You
call.
said it.
The racist.
And racist.
Asking
Racist,
me
and
to
racist.
serve with
The
him on
letter
this
round. Good.
ticket
Yeah.
was probably one of the most memorable days of my life.
Why did he try to digit rape you? Like
I thought
Reade?
about my mother,
Didn't know a racist
who
would pick you.
came to the United
on,
States
man.
at the age of 19, gave birth to me at the age of 25 at Kaiser Hospital in Oakland, California. And the thought
Why
that
are we
I'd
get a
be sitting
backstory?
here
What
right
is
now,
Eats up
I
the
know
time.
would make her
I know.
proud.
She's just
Must be
Susan,
looking
that's a
down.
good point. She is eating up the time right
You know,
now so
Joe
that there
and
is
I were
no
raised in a very
accountability
similar
way.
in her
We were
answers.
raised with
And I hate to
values
say,
that
but
are
ain't that
about
just
our work.
like some women?
About
I hope Pence points it out
value
in
and
his
the
next
dignity
answer.
of public
This is
service.
about-
Hits it right off the top.
And about
Goes
the
to next
importance of
question.
fighting for the dignity of
But he
all
does have
people.
pink eye.
And I think Joe asked
bit.
me to serve with him because,
I think he got socked.
I have a career that included
The
being
question
elected
is,
first woman
what
district
happens
attorney
when he
in San Francisco,
dies?
Right,
where I
yeah.
created models of innovation for law
Mentally.
enforcement in terms of reform of the criminal justice system. I was elected the first
I know Joseph Biden has been accused of
woman
being a
of
bullshitter,
color and
Susan,
black
but
woman to
he
be
has
elected
promised me, he's
Attorney
given me his
General of the
word,
state of
he
California,
will
where I
never
ran
die.
the second largest department of justice in the United States,
Especially not
second
first
only
lady.
to the
You can
United
trust
States
him on
Department
that.
of Justice.
And then he
And there
groped
I
me.
took on everything from transnational criminal
In a racial way.
organizations to the big banks that were taking advantage of homeowners.
This is not the answer.
Yeah, what is this?
Let me know. By the way, we have your costume contest. Of course, send them in. We'll be taking your winners, and we'll be going exclusively to the Blaze. This is not an answer. This is remarkable. Kamala Harris is doing everything. You know, I thought that they were going to kind of be dancing out there, feeling each other out a little bit, you know, bobbing and weaving. But instead, she's not bobbing and weaving Pence's attack. She's bobbing and weaving the questions from the moderator. And this moderator is clearly trying to stack the deck against Pence.
Well, she went all the way back to her
Who would
birth.
have thought that Mike Pence would come to the rescue for the Trump campaign?
Nobody.
Lifting up the American people. And after the 4 years that we have seen of Donald
she's jumped
Trump
out of the ring and run
unifying
out of the
our country
building.
around
Yeah, at this
our
point.
common values and principles.
She's across
Thank
the
you,
street at the
Senator.
He might as well
Luxor.
have walked in here like a centaur and just trampled her.
Dear Susan Collins, by the way, she said, thank you very much for your answer. She didn't say that's not the answer to any question I asked.
Let me hear the
And in
next
recent
question.
days, President Trump's doctors have given misleading answers or refused to answer basic questions about his health. And my
I guess if
question
the
to
topic
each
changed-
of you in turn is this information
Leading
voters
question.
loud, yeah.
Oh, sorry, I won't do it anymore.
to know?
No, do it.
Get
Vice
hit the
President
side.
Pence, would
Hit
you
the
like to
side
go first?
gently.
Well, Susan, thank you.
Oh, no.
And let me
Hey,
say,
cousin.
on behalf of the president and the first lady, how moved we've all been
Yeah, just go.
by the outpouring of
Thanks for rating.
prayers and concern for the president. And I do believe it's emblematic of the prayers and the concern that have ushered
His
forth
doctor
for
was not
every
gonna
American impacted by the coronavirus.
Remind me after this. There was a
But the care
headline
the
that I
president
read,
received
and I saw the doctor's
at Walter
answer.
Reade Hospital,
It
the White
was
House doctors, was
remarkable.
exceptional. And the transparency that they practiced all along the way will continue. The American people have a right to know about the health and well-being of their president, and will continue to do that. But I'm just extremely grateful and was more than a little
By the
moved
way, Reg the Bandit, update us
by
if
the
Donald
broad
Trump is
and
tweeting right now,
bipartisan
so they can't.
support. And Senator, I want to thank you and Joe Biden for your expressions of genuine concern. And I also want to congratulate you,
Pretty generous.
Here
as
comes
I did
yeah.
on that phone call, on the historic nature of your nomination.
Thank you.
I never expected to be on this stage 4 years ago, so I know the feeling. But the reality is we've got an election before the American people in the midst of this challenging year. And the stakes have never been higher, but I think the choice has never been
Yes,
clearer.
I want
She keeps
to
cutting
give
him off.
Senator Harris a chance to
By the way,
respond to
the
the
question
same
that she asked
question
was
I
a
asked, which is, do
non-question.
voters have a
She
right
asked a pointed
know
question to
more
Harris. This
detailed
is what's
health
important, to be a layup, and she
about
didn't
presidential
answer. Whereas his was,
Especially
doctors were misleading about COVID. Do you hate Trump? So I thought it said, Donald Trump's doctors refused to disclose status of his health. And it was the doctor saying he's doing well, he hasn't had a fever, and someone said, can we see his lung scans? He said, oh, listen, the patient-doctor confidentiality privilege would extend to the president, so I can't give you his lung scans. That's it!
Refused. He refused to answer questions.
Was he on oxygen? Well, he's not on oxygen right now. Liars!
It's like, I need to know the status of the president's health. I demand to be the one to perform the prostate exam. I'm sorry, I can't let you do that. Nazi, one of us! Google gobble, one of us!
And is in debt for $400 million. And just so everyone is clear, when we say in debt, it means you owe money to somebody. And it'd be really good to know
Thanks,
who
Mom.
the
As opposed
President
to
of
all
the
those
United States, the
outstanding
Commander-in-Chief,
handies.
owes
This isn't
money
like
to,
credit
because
card
the
debt. This is
American
like owning a
people have
house,
right to
owning a
know
building debt.
What is
It's a different
influencing
thing.
Much bigger
the
than that.
president's
But she has
decisions?
no clue
And
about
is he making those decisions on the best interest of the American people, of you, or self-interest? So, Susan, I'm glad you asked about transparency.
If rent came
because
due
it
in
has
the
to be
Dickens
across
era, she'd
the
be the
board.
one
Joe
blowing
has
Ebenezer
been incredibly
Scrooge.
transparent over many, many years.
And then she'd like
The one
jump
thing we
over
all
to
know
another
about
novel like
Joe,
The Page Master
he
and go,
puts it
please,
all
sir,
out
can I
there.
have some more? Like, that's not even
He
this.
is armed
not how
with
it's
his
supposed to work.
forthright. But Donald Trump, on the other hand,
Susan.
has been about covering up everything.
Thank you, Senator Harris. I want to give you a chance to respond, Vice President.
Well, look, I respect the fact that Joe Biden spent 47 years in public life. I respect your public service
I don't
as
respect
well.
that at all.
The American people have a president who's a businessman, he's a job creator, who's paid tens of millions of dollars in taxes, payroll taxes, property taxes. He's created tens of thousands of American jobs. And the president said those public reports are not accurate. And the president's also released literally stacks of financial disclosures the American people can review just as the law allows. But the distinction here is that Joe Biden, 47 years in public service compared to President Donald Trump, who brought all of that experience 4 years ago.
Thank you, Vice
and
President.
turned this economy around by cutting taxes, rolling back regulations.
They don't want to be giving him the amount of time that they're giving. Now, he needs to be shorter. He needs to be more succinct. But they are not giving him the same amount of time as they're giving her.
You know, that's a good segue into our third topic, which is about the economy. This has been another aspect of
Come on, moderator, if you're going to bring up Donald Trump, bad at COVID, bring up the lowest unemployment in modern American history, the highest wage growth, lowest drug prices. Bring it up. Bring it up, Susan. Bring it up, Susan. Don't let me down, Susan.
7.9% in September.
Susan,
but the job growth had stalled, and that was before the latest round of layoffs and furloughs in the airline industry at Disney and elsewhere. Hundreds of thousands of discouraged workers have stopped looking for work. Nearly 11 million jobs that existed at the beginning of the year haven't been replaced. Those hardest hit include Latinos, blacks, and women. Senator Harris, the Biden-Harris campaign has proposed new programs to boost the economy, and you would pay for that.
Lock them up. That's the Kamala Harris program for blacks.
$4 trillion
Lock them up and put them on the side of the freeway with
wealthy
pokey
individuals
sticks.
and corporations. Some economists warn that could curb entrepreneurial ventures that fuel growth and create jobs. Would raising taxes put the recovery at risk? And you have 2 minutes to answer uninterrupted.
I'm a child.
You are. It's okay. We love you.
On the issue of the economy, I think there couldn't be a more fundamental difference between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Joe Biden believes you measure the health and the strength of America's economy based on the health and the strength of the American worker and the American family.
Oh, yeah. What was wage growth? What was wage growth under Joe Biden?
Donald Trump,
what was the wage growth?
who measures the strength of the economy based on how rich people are doing, which is why he passed a tax
unemployment
bill
is down to what,
benefiting
8.4, 8.2. Barack Obama had it over 9%,
leading to
for years.
A $2 trillion
for at least over a year. I think it was a year and a half.
A little over a year.
Pay for. On day one, Joe Biden will repeal that tax bill. He'll get rid of it.
No, hold on a second.
And what he'll do with the money is invest it in the
She means on day 48 years and one.
Yeah. It's true. You do have to count.
Because we're supposed to believe that he's going to run it now.
They all count.
I don't think it ever happens.
It's a hard thing to do.
But Joe Biden will do that. He'll invest in infrastructure. It's about upgrading our roads and bridges, but also investing in clean energy and renewable energy.
Again,
Joe is going to invest that money in what we need to do around innovation. There was a time when our country believed in science and invested in research and development so that we were in an innovation leader on the globe.
What is you and Biden? What is your view on nuclear, Harris? The most renewable resource that we possibly have. You can compare Germany and France. Germany has power surpluses and brownouts when they tried to go to entirely renewable energy and ignored nuclear, whereas France actually has fewer carbon emissions than the countries that signed on to this protocol to lower their carbon emissions through solar. Because guess what? It takes a lot of energy to mine those materials, to put those up, and then they're incredibly energy inefficient, so you have to rely on whatever else you have, which is usually coal and natural gas, as opposed to nuclear energy. You do not agree with the science. Do you know how many accidents have taken place with nuclear? 3. Ever. 3 major accidents ever. 3 Mile Island, Fukushima, and Chernobyl. And most of the deaths had to do with the evacuation procedures and not actually from nuclear radiation poisoning. Not saying it's entirely safe, but what happened to the science? Senator BJ, let's go.
Uninterrupted.
2.5 minutes.
That head waggle
When
looks
President
really
Trump and I
stupid.
took office,
How long was that for
America
Harris?
went through the slowest economic recovery since the Great Depression. When Joe Biden was vice president, they tried to tax and spend and regulate and bail our way back to a growing economy.
Failed.
President Trump cut taxes across the board. Despite what Senator Harris says, the average American family of 4 had $2,000 in savings in taxes. And with the rise in wages that occurred, most predominantly for blue-collar, hardworking Americans, the average household income for a family of 4 increased by $4,000 following President Trump's tax cuts. But America, you just heard Senator Harris tell you, on day one, Joe Biden's going to raise your taxes.
Yep.
It's really remarkable to think.
48 and 1.
I mean, right after a time where we're going through a pandemic that lost 22 million jobs at the height.
She doesn't know
We've
what to do,
already
that's why.
added back
She's like the Joker when he
11.6
gets
million
punched in the
jobs.
face.
Because we had a president who cut taxes, rolled back regulation, unleashed American energy, fought for free and fair trade, and secured $4 trillion
This is a very
from the
clear-cut
Congress of the
example
United States
of a
to
man
give direct
running on a
payments to
record.
families,
He keeps pointing
save
to the record,
50
pointing to the
million
record
jobs
for
through the
years, pointing to
Paycheck
the record,
Protection
and
Program.
her
We literally
not
have
pointing
spared no
anything.
expense to help
got
the
nothing but
American
We're just saying,
people
I
and
believe in
American workers through
science.
this.
Joe Biden and I are
and
going to,
Kamala
well, yeah,
Harris
Joe Biden has
wanna raise
48
taxes.
years. What do
They
you have
wanna
to show for
bury
criminal
our
justice reform?
economy
What do you
under
have to
a
show for any kind of
$2
job
trillion
creation in the
Green
Senate?
New Deal,
He is pointing
which you were one of the
directly to
original
the record that is
co-sponsors in the United
verifiable.
States
Mike
Senate.
Pence, after this
They wanna
debate, the best thing that could
abolish
happen
fossil
for Mike
fuel
Pence
and
is you
ban
fact check
fracking,
him.
which would
The
cost
worst thing that could
hundreds of
happen with
thousands
Kamala Harris
of American
is you hit
jobs
rewind
all
and try to
across
find
our
anything worth fact
And
checking.
Joe Biden wants to go back to the economic surrender to China, that when we took office, half of our international trade deficit was with China alone. And Joe Biden wants to repeal all of the tariffs that President Trump put into effect to fight for American jobs and American workers. Joe Biden says democracy's on the ballot. Make no mistake about it, Susan. The American economy, the American comeback is on the ballot with 4 more years of growth and opportunity,
Thank you,
4
Vice
more years of President Donald
thought he
Trump.
had 2.5 minutes.
2021
Thank you,
was
Vice
the
President.
biggest economic year in the
She
history
only
of this
gave him
country.
210.
Thank you, Vice President Pence. Senator Harris.
Well, I mean, I thought we saw enough of it in last week's debate, but I think this is supposed to be a debate based on fact and truth. And the truth and the fact is, Joe Biden has been very clear.
Is it the opposite day?
He will not raise taxes on anybody who makes less than $400,000
Which, by the way,
a
is
year.
just so conveniently
That's a
happens to be the
lie.
presidential
Mr. Vice President,
salary.
I'm speaking.
Well, that's also
I was
a
like,
lie.
oh, only raise taxes
I'm
above.
speaking.
What do I
The
make?
important is
400,000,
this is
sir.
the truth.
400,000.
It's not true.
Not a
Joe
dime
Biden
a
said twice in the debate last week that he's going to repeal the Trump tax cuts.
Right, which would raise taxes
That was
on people
tax
under
cuts that gave the
400,000.
Of course,
average
would raise
working
Trump-
family
raise taxes on all Americans.
$2,000 in a tax break every single year.
That is,
Senator,
that is
that's the math.
absolutely not true.
It's-
That
It is
he only
100%
is
true.
he
The
only
average
gonna
American, I believe,
repeal
is
part of the Trump tax
$1,900
If
on
you don't mind
average,
letting
and
me
more in their
finish.
pocket at the
We
end of
can
the
have
year.
a conversation, okay?
Please.
Okay.
Oh my God! Ooh!
Joe Biden will not raise taxes on anyone who makes less than $400,000.
That is not a good look for
That is not
No.
a good
Very
look.
clear about that.
The head
Joe
waggy.
Biden
No.
will not
Okay.
raise fracking.
Okay.
He has been very clear
Why don't
about
you answer the
that.
question? Okay. I would not be
Joe
presidential.
Biden is the one who, during the Great Recession, was responsible
For making it worse.
for the Recovery Act that brought America back. And now the Trump-Pence administration wants to take credit when they rode the coattails of Joe Biden's success for the economy that they had at the beginning of their term.
Opposite
policies.
We're trying.
Complete
Let's
disaster.
keep this straight while we're fact checking.
But Joe Biden,
Kamala
on the
Harris
one hand, did
just
that. On the
claimed
other hand, you
that the
have Donald
economy that you are seeing, obviously
has
before COVID in 2020, 2019, was a rip-roaring success because of Joe Biden. When the guy who was actually running the game while Joe Biden was president, unemployment was still pretty much, I think the average is about twice what it was with Donald Trump, 3.5%. I don't know if we've ever seen 3.5% unemployment in our lifetime, let alone with the labor force participation rate.
Wow.
She just tried to say that the economy was doing well under Trump because of Joe Biden. By the way, just tried to blame the economy with COVID due to Democratic governor policies on Donald Trump. So which is it, sweetheart?
Be clear.
North, south,
Which
north,
means
south,
that
north, south.
You lose protections if you have pre-existing conditions, and this
pivoting to
is very
healthcare.
important, Susan.
Yes,
and it's
but we
important.
need to give Vice President.
I'd just like to, he interrupted me, and I'd like to just.
Mommy!
She's trying to play
You have
the
pre-existing
straight white
conditions.
male.
Heart disease, diabetes, breast cancer, they're coming for you. If you
It's not Corona.
They are coming for
What
you.
he should do right now is do a breast exam. Like, hold on a second, I thought.
Senator Harris,
Mike
thank
Pence
you.
is going to murder you in your bed.
There's a bump. Oh, no, wait, it's just called manliness, sweetheart. That must be my pheromones, or we're throwing you into a tizzy.
And President Trump and I have a plan
Listen,
to improve
Kamala,
health care.
I understand your barren womb has you temperamental, but
every American.
I
But
understand
look,
it's only natural.
Senator Harris, you're entitled to your own opinion, but you're not entitled to your own facts. You yourself said on
an old line,
multiple
but it is.
occasions when you were running for president that you would ban fracking. Joe Biden looked at a supporter in the eye and pointed and said, I guarantee that we will abolish fossil fuels. They have a $2 trillion
then he
version
forgot.
of the Green New Deal, Susan, that your newspaper, USA Today, said really wasn't that very different from the original Green New Deal.
oh, by the way, ding.
More taxes, more regulation.
Oh, nice.
We now moved on to
banning
energy policy.
fracking, abolishing fossil fuel, crushing American energy, and economic
And by the way,
surrender
some of the
to
people need
China
to understand
is a prescription
having
for
Americans in
economic
charge of their own
decline.
fossil fuels
President
is
Trump
more
and I will
eco-friendly
keep
than Saudi Arabia.
America growing.
Yeah.
The
Oh,
V-shaped
God.
recovery
Well, we don't beat our
that we're
wicket,
right
so.
now
Hey, it's
will
diverse.
continue with 4
I
more
just don't
years
know
of
if I can.
president.
I just don't know if I can hit.
Is that a guy or a-
Pence, once again,
Hey,
you
don't- hey,
provided
I don't know,
the
but it's
perfect
getting
segue
out.
to
You don't
the
ask. You don't ask. You
which
just let
is
it be.
They?
climate change.
Is it they?
And Vice President
Probably more
Pence,
than likely.
I'd like to pose the first question to you. This year, we've seen record-setting hurricanes in the South. Another one, Hurricane Delta, is now threatening the Gulf.
It's Trump's
And
fault.
we have seen record-setting
Delta,
wildfires
Trump's out there in the
West.
ocean. Get
Do
him
you
up.
believe, as the scientific community has concluded, that man-made climate change has made wildfires bigger,
No.
hotter,
They haven't
and more
concluded that,
deadly?
though.
They haven't
And have made
concluded that. By the
hurricanes
way,
wetter,
while you're
slower,
cherry picking facts, how
and
about
more
you bring up the
damaging?
fact that we have
You have
record
2
high
minutes
Great
remaining.
Lakes and record crop yields in the Midwest? And by the way, the most temperate climates that we have seen in places like the Midwest and Texas. Positively
According to
balmy
all the
and
best
cool.
estimates,
Look, I'm running both a
our air and land
dehumidifier
are
and a
cleaner
humidifier at the same time to keep it at a perfect,
recorded.
like a walking humidor.
Cleanest in the world. And just a little while ago, the president signed the Outdoors Act. It's the largest investment in our public lands and public parks in 100 years.
Kamala's like, that's not in my
So
document.
President Trump has made a commitment to conservation
I'll
and to
laugh.
the environment. Now, with regard to climate change,
It's not a laugh, it's a
the
smirk.
climate is changing.
Oh, by the way, drink, because that was
The
obviously a
issue
leading question.
is-
Yeah.
What's the cause, and what do we do about it? President Trump has made it clear that we're going to continue to listen to the science. Now, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris would put us back in the Paris Climate Accord. They'd impose the Green New Deal,
Yeah.
which would crush
No,
American
no, you
energy,
won't do it, or
would
you will
increase
do
the
it,
energy
Kamala.
costs.
You're-
Yeah,
was
did
a
we hold our
handshake
feet
with
to the fire
families
in the Green New
in
Deal?
their homes.
Yeah.
Because that's a
Literally would
5-page
crush
bill that takes over
jobs.
everything.
And President Trump and I
Well, she
believe
said she
that
would abolish the filibuster to
progress
make
that
sure it
we
passed.
have made
Oh, okay.
in
Well,
a cleaner
until they need it.
environment has been happening precisely because we have a strong free market economy. You know, what's remarkable is the United States has reduced CO2 more than the countries that are still in the Paris Climate Accord, but we've done it through
True.
innovation.
Interesting.
And we've done
We
it
could
through
probably reduce it
natural
more if
gas
we weren't paying their
and
share of
fracking,
NATO.
Which, Senator, the American people can go look at the record. I know Joe Biden says otherwise now, as you do, but the both of you repeatedly committed to abolishing fossil fuel
Keep
and
shaking
banning
that head.
fracking. And so by creating the kind of American
It's on
innovation,
video.
Of course it's
we're
on
actually
video.
steering
Like,
towards
how
Of
can
course
you say
it's on
it's
video.
environment?
They said they were
With
going to
regard to
ban fracking.
wildfires,
The reason they have to pivot
President
from that
Trump
is
and I
not just
believe
because it's
that
creating
forest
jobs, but because
management
people now
has to
understand
be
that
front
fracking is
and
actually
center.
better
And
for the
even
environment
Gavin
than
Newsom
having
from
to
your
bring
state
oil
has
over
agreed
on
we've got to
tankers
work with
across
forest
volatile
management.
waters. People are
With regard to
understanding that now more and more. At
the
first it was, oh,
National
chemicals in the
Oceanic
ground, and I saw that guy who has a Young Turk show who lit a faucet on fire. Then people said, ah, here's a video of that happening in the 50s. They were like, oh, skunked again.
We're 100 years ago.
Thank you.
But many of the climate alarmists
President Pence,
use
I'm sorry, your time
hurricanes
is
and
up. No, keep finishing
wildfires
it.
to try and
Thank
sell
you,
their
Vice
bill of
President
goods
Pence.
of a Green New Deal.
Well, really, has science
and
has
President
concluded
Trump and I are going to
No.
always
Noah
put
has
American
never
jobs and
gotten their
American
estimate of
workers
hurricanes right.
first.
Senator Harris,
It's worse than
as the Vice
statistical
President
random.
mentioned, you
Worse
co-sponsored
than
the
Vince
Green New
Young
Deal
on
in
the
Congress.
QB
But
IQ
Vice
test.
President Biden said in last week's debate that he does not support the Green New Deal. But if you look at the Biden-Harris campaign website, it describes the Green New Deal as a crucial framework.
Right.
What exactly
Drake, I like
would
that
be the
question.
stance of a Biden-Harris administration toward
Answer
the Green
this.
New Deal?
Everyone
You have
shut up.
2
I
minutes
want to hear her answer this
uninterrupted.
directly.
Sure. So, first of all, I will repeat, and the American people know, that Joe Biden will not ban fracking. That is a fact.
He said he would.
That is a fact.
Answer the question on Green New Deal, sweetheart.
I will repeat that Joe Biden has been very clear that he
West
thinks
Indy
about
pumpkin. Answer the
growing
question.
jobs, which is why he will not increase taxes for anyone who makes less than $400,000 a year. Joe Biden's economic plan, Moody's, which is a reputable Wall Street firm, has said will create 7 million more jobs than Donald Trump's. And part of those jobs that will be created by Joe Biden are going to be about clean energy and renewable energy.
Green New Deal.
Because you see,
Answer the question.
Joe understands.
You just lied
that
about fracking.
The
There's
west
the video. We
coast
can
of
pull up
our
that video, I'm
country
sure.
is
of him
burning,
saying he'll ban
including
fracking.
my home state of California.
Bring up. She asked you
Joe
about the Green New
sees
Deal
what is
specifically.
happening
They
on the
never
Gulf
answer.
states,
Well, you pack the
which are
courts.
being
Let me
battered
tell
by
you,
storm.
Joe Biden has
Joe
great
has
hair.
seen and talked with farmers.
Green New
in
Deal.
Iowa,
Let me tell you,
whose
Joe
entire
Biden will
crops
not
have
raise
been
taxes on
destroyed
anyone
because of
making more than the
flood.
president.
And so Joe believes, again, in science. I'll tell you something, Susan. I served, when I first got to the Senate, on the committee that's responsible for the environment. Do you know this administration took the word science off the website? and then took the phrase climate change off the website. We have seen a
Green
pattern
New
with this
Deal. We'll give you
administration,
one
which is
more
they don't believe in
chance,
science.
West Indian Trading
And
Company.
Joe's
But they
plan
changed
is
the
about saying
website.
we're going to deal with it, but we're also going
How
to
about you change your website where it
when
says
asked
the
about
Green
the
New
wildfires,
Deal is what you
and
support? Would
discussion
someone
was,
bring
you know,
up the
the science is
website
telling
of
us
the crazy,
framework.
of the crazy old bat,
Science
crazy
doesn't know.
pandering biatch? Could someone bring that up?
They're
Let's bring that
changing
shit
it
up.
right
about
now.
who is prepared
Someone's
to
getting
lead our
fired.
Some poor
country
tech guy's like, oh God, I gotta write the code.
4 years on what is an existential threat to us as human beings. Joe is about saying we're going to invest that in renewable energy. It's going to be about the creation of millions of jobs.
3 seconds. Green New Deal. Yes, no, go.
Net zero emissions by 2050.
Do the Phoebe.
Carbon neutral
Like,
by
okay,
2035.
Joe Biden
has a plan.
or Donald Trump? Joe Biden.
This
Mike
has
Pence,
been a
Kamala
lot of
Harris.
talk
Kamala
from
Harris.
the
Green New
Trump
Deal. Yes, no.
administration,
Yes.
and really it has been to go backward instead of forward. We will also re-enter the climate agreement with pride.
Senator Harris just said that climate change is an existential threat. Vice President Pence, do you believe that climate change poses an existential threat?
As I said, Susan, the climate is changing. We'll follow the science. But once again, Senator Harris is denying the fact
Now,
that
see,
they're going to raise taxes.
this is something else everyone needs to
on every
know.
American.
Because
Joe Biden
I can
said
speak a little bit,
twice
and by
in
the way, have a
debate
watch
last
along,
week
folks, because we do have to
that on day
commentate at
one-
least
Right.
more than average, otherwise they might ban us. She asked a very specific question right there to Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris did not answer. She let her off the hook. Green New Deal, it's on your website. Didn't answer it. Then she asks, there you go, right in the website. Green New Deal is a crucial framework. Also, they said they were going to ban fracking. Then she asks Vice President Mike Pence. She asks him a very broad question, but requires a specific answer. Climate change, she said, is an existential threat. Do you believe that that's the case? And he'll say, well, listen, we'll follow the science, which is an entirely appropriate answer. That's not an appropriate answer for if your website says Green New Deal, right? Do you believe it's an existential threat? Well, I think that'll be determined by the science, because science, by the way, is not the science. Science is something that develops, that changes. A lockdown was appropriate at the beginning of this pandemic, knowing science now, and the CDC revising their own survival rates to about 100% for people under the age of 50. That's what science is. Science develops. Science progresses. Science is a catalyst for things moving forward.
Yeah.
But she says, do you think it's an existential threat? And then she'll call him on it for not answering specifically. Specific question, she doesn't answer at all. A broad question, he answers with an appropriate broad answer, and then he gets called to the mat. I don't like this. Actually, I do. I like what he's doing.
Yeah, he's doing good.
of our environment and follow the science.
Thank
But
you, Vice
you know, on
President
the issue of jobs,
Senator Harris.
let's talk about that.
Hand.
The
Why does she get
vice
to
president
respond?
earlier
You get to
referred
respond to
to,
She
as
heard
part
hand
of what he thinks is an accomplishment, the president's trade war with China. You lost that trade war.
No.
You lost it.
You didn't.
No, we didn't.
What ended up happening is because of a
As
so-called
opposed to
trade
Joe
war with
Biden,
China,
who came back
America
on the
lost
horse of NAFTA and
300,000 manufacturing
TPP
jobs.
victoriously while his saggy
Farmers
man tits
have
glistened in the sun.
bankruptcy because of it. We are in a manufacturing recession because of it.
No.
And when we look at
because
where this administration
We were put in a
has been,
manufacturing
there are
recession
estimates
under the
that by the
Obama
end of the
administration,
term of
and
this
we've now
administration,
managed to
they
mitigate
will
those
have
losses.
lost
That's
more
one of those
jobs
things where she
than
doesn't
almost
want you to
any
fact check
other
her.
Right.
presidential
She doesn't. Let's just use your common sense here.
And the
Let's just
American
use your
people know what I'm talking
rational,
about.
right? Your little
You know,
rationalization
I
portion of
think
your
about
noggin,
20-year-olds.
okay?
You know, we
Do you
have
think that
20-year-olds,
NAFTA or the Trans-Pacific Partnership
20-something-year-olds
actually
who are
helped
coming out
create
of
American jobs?
right now, and you're wondering if there's jobs
Just do you really? Because they went all in on that.
people who are trying to figure
All right,
out
let's
how
go.
they're going to pay rent by the end of the month. Almost half of American renters are worried about whether they're going to be able to pay rent by
Great.
the end of the
Let's-
That
month.
has giving
This is
free
where the
stuff
economy
to
is in
people
America
renting,
right now, and
basically
it is
stealing it
because
from the
of
owners of the property has nothing to do with creating jobs. This is the fundamental difference. They don't know how to create jobs. When they say, "Hey, how are you going to create jobs? How do you view the economy?" Well, he wanted more Americans to have jobs, but we need to take from the property owners and give it to the people who are renting. I rest
Joe
my case.
Biden's been a cheerleader for communist China over the last several decades.
Yeah, baby.
And that's my
again,
that's my half Chinese
Senator Harris,
lawyer.
you're entitled
China
to your opinion.
loves
You're not entitled to your own
Biden.
facts. When Joe Biden was vice president, we lost 200,000 manufacturing jobs. And President Obama said they were never coming back. He said we needed a magic wand to bring them back. In our first 3 years after we cut taxes, rolled back regulation, unleashed American energy.
Hey, just real quick, those 7 million jobs she referenced earlier, even the Washington Post admitted all of that would be funded through having a Democratic-controlled Senate and White House that would pass deficit spending. So essentially, yes, we will tax more, take that money, create jobs, and go, look, we created jobs.
Right. 15 seconds, and then we'll move on.
Thank you.
That's a good Harry Reade.
Joe Biden is responsible for saving America's auto industry, and you voted against it. So let's set the record straight.
No, he's not. He's not responsible.
I'd like to talk
the
about
American
China.
taxpayers are responsible for bailing, and the Chevy Volt sucks.
Still sucks. Sucked then, sucks now.
Foreign relationship than
By the way,
one
you want to
with
know
China.
how crony the Democratic
is
Party
a
is?
huge
But
market for American
Ford
agricultural
did not want to take the bailout, and they were forced to. They were said, no, you're going to do this because we can't make this work with the UAW, right, in these agreements if you don't go in. It would be a shame if I broke some shit. I shouldn't have hit the thing that was chained down. It'd be a shame if I broke shit, Ford, huh? Take the bailout.
Competitors,
Those are some nice cars you got there. Be a shame if they caught on fire.
Thank you, Susan.
Just saying.
It'd be shame if you were racists.
It'd be a shame if someone drove an old Pinto in here and left the keys in the ignition.
In reverse?
Everybody knows that NAFTA cost literally thousands of American factories to close. We saw automotive jobs go south of the border. President Trump fought
to
to renegotiate NAFTA.
in Michigan,
In the United States,
in the Rust Belt,
Mexico-Canada agreement
who
is now the law of the
have
land.
really parted ways. I'll go back to that in a
American people
second.
deserve
This
to
is a good
know.
strategy.
Senator Kamala Harris was one of only 10 members of the Senate to vote against the USMCA. It was a huge win for American auto workers. It was a huge win for American farmers, especially dairy in the upper Midwest. But Senator, you said it didn't go far enough on
She's
climate
from
change.
California. She's dairy and gluten-free.
That you put your radical environmental agenda ahead of American auto workers and ahead of American jobs. The American people deserve to know that. It's probably why Newsweek magazine said that Kamala Harris was the most liberal member of the United
This is
States
a perfect
Senate
example
in
of Pence
2019.
and Trump.
More liberal than
Pence is
Bernie
able to
Sanders.
articulate. He's trying to say, hey, look, if you actually look at our policies, if you look at the equitable trade agreements, we created more American jobs. We encouraged businesses to return this manufacturing to the United States, right? He's talking about giving a fishing pole and lures and bait and bobbers, and she's just like, take the fucking fish!
He's not happy about it.
Take the fish! He's like, I got a fishing pole. She's like, you take the fish!
China and the World Health Organization.
You know what? I'm not going to teach. What am I going to teach you?
They did not
What am I,
want our
retired?
personnel
There are
into
mayors out there who haven't had their knob polished in a month and a half. You take the fish!
I got a job to do.
President Trump, in dealing with China from the outset of this administration, standing up to China that had been taking advantage of America for decades in the wake of Joe Biden's
Why do we let that
cheerleading
happen?
for
There's
China.
so little.
President Trump made that decision before the end of January
wanted to
to
sell things
suspend
to them.
all travel from China.
Yeah.
And again, the American people deserve to know
If it
Joe
was, we'd
Biden
lose. They just keep
opposed
throwing
President
bodies
Trump's
over like
decision
World
to
War
suspend
Z.
all travel
You don't even have to
from
fight him. You
China.
just hold their head away.
He said it was hysterical. He said it was
Thank you, Vice President
xenophobic.
Pence.
But President Trump has
Vice President
stood
Pence,
up
your
to
time is
China.
up.
We're going to continue to stand strong.
Thank you, Vice President Pence.
We want to improve the relationship, but we're going to level the playing field. And we're going to hold
Vice President-
China
She
gave her more
accountable for
time.
what they did to America with the coronavirus.
Thank you. Senator Harris, let me ask you the same question that I asked the Vice President. How would you describe our fundamental relationship?
For those who are
Are we
watching online and
competitors,
can't see Steven, he's cleaning up the mess he made when he was
enemies?
very, very
You'll have
angry
2 minutes.
about
He's
stupid
still
answers.
Now I got to clean that up.
Susan, the Trump administration's perspective and approach to China has resulted in the loss of American lives,
Oh, really?
American
Wait, what?
jobs,
How?
and America's standing.
Excuse me, how?
There's
Standing
a weird
compared to China? I
obsession
mean, it's not a
that
tough act to
President
follow.
Trump has
She just
had
says period and
with getting
walks
rid
out.
of whatever accomplishment
She thought that was a mic drop.
was achieved by President Obama and Vice President Biden. For example, they created within the White House an office that basically was responsible for monitoring pandemics. They got away, they got rid of it.
Nope,
They didn't get rid of it.
They didn't.
There was
They
a
didn't get
team
rid of it. They
of
merged
disease
departments so there was more
experts
efficient communication
that
could actually take
President
place more
Obama
specifically
and
rather
Vice
than broadly.
President Biden dispatched to China to monitor what is now predictable and what might happen. They pulled them
so
out.
pissed right now.
We now are looking.
I'm glad this drinking game isn't her reading MSNBC
Does she really
headlines.
think that they're tough? You got mad that he said the virus was from China.
Let's look at
Like, let's
You're
just
tough on
let's
China,
get rid of
really?
NAFTA
The
and
trade
TPP and the actual unsavory financial ties of Biden and China. You got mad when he called it the Chinese virus.
Over 300
case.
manufacturing jobs and a manufacturing recession, and the American consumer paying thousands of dollars more for goods because of that failed
Did we?
war that they called it. Then let's talk about
that.
standing. Pew, a reputable research firm,
Pew is what I say to your
has done
performance.
an analysis that shows that
Again with
leaders
reputable.
of all of
my
our
source.
Yeah,
formerly
last time it was
allied
Moody's that
countries
rated
It was
Lehman Brothers
Moody's
as
and
AAA
Fauci.
right
that they
before
hold
it
in
failed.
greater
For her, it
esteem
just
and
does it have an
respect.
E at the end of it.
Xi
It's
Jinping,
reputable.
The
Fauci,
head of
Moody,
the Chinese Communist Party than they
Hanky,
do Donald Trump,
Panky,
the President of the United
Willie.
States, the Commander-in-Chief of the United States.
Brownie,
This is where
she
we
knows him.
are today because of a failure of leadership by this administration.
Senator Harris,
Oh, she
we've
just
seen
spun her
changes
wheel.
in
ran out.
the
She did not have an
role
answer
of
on
the
that.
United
Straight
States
ran out.
That was like
global
Mr. Bean in the
leadership
movie.
over
in
the past 4
conclusion,
years. And of
I'm
course,
getting
times do
very near
change.
the end of this now.
Sure does. We've seen strains with China, of course,
Whistler's
as the Vice
mother.
President mentioned. We've seen strains with our traditional allies in NATO and elsewhere. What is your definition of the role of American leadership in 2020?
So, you know, Joe is, I love talking to Joe about a lot of these issues. And, you know, Joe.
Joe
What about when he
basis,
grabbed
Well,
her
he says, you know,
tits?
foreign
Yeah, because
policy
he's a
might
rapist.
sound
They tell great
complicated,
stories,
but really
apparently.
It's relationships. So just think about it as relationships.
And a racist. And a racist.
And
Has there ever been a
so
vice
we know
presidential
this in our
candidate who has
personal
accused the
professional
man on the top of the
relationships.
ticket
You gotta keep
of
your word to your
both
friends.
rape and racism?
Gotta be loyal.
Yeah,
No, I'm
actually,
trying to
in the
think,
same
and I
debate.
can't think
the
of
second
Got
Grover
Stanley
Cleveland. Yeah, it was terrible.
Okay, you're right. Yeah,
Terrible.
came back around.
Keep them in check.
Did FDR have some VP
But what
who was
we're
like, ignore the
seeing with
wheelchair,
Donald
he's a
Trump
racist, see?
Is that he has betrayed our friends and embraced dictators around the world.
Who?
Let's take, for example, Russia.
How is he embracing
So-
Russia?
Really? Let's compare
Russia
policies
serve
of
on the Intelligence
Obama and
Committee
Russia versus
of the
Donald
United
Trump and
States
Russia.
Senate.
Not your fake Steele
America
dossier
has told
made
us
up entirely scandal. Let's be clear about that. What's the Obama policy on Russia versus Donald Trump? What are the sanctions? How have we behaved with them internationally? You tell me, sweetheart. Let's hear.
Said the same. But Donald Trump, the Commander-in-Chief of the United States of America, prefers to take the word of Vladimir Putin over the word of the American intelligence community. You look at our friends at NATO.
Can we get a reference here?
He's walked away.
Like, what is
from
she talking
agreement.
about?
Hey, if they
You can
leave,
talk- look
if
at
they
the
leave
Iran
you
nuclear
footing the
deal,
bill every
which now
single
has
time you go out for dinner,
Oh, God.
they're not your friends. That's everyone else at NATO. Who
They're
got people to
using you.
finally start paying their whopping 2% at NATO?
Arsenal. We were in that deal, guys.
That
We were
only
in the
happens if you
Iran
have
nuclear
some
deal with
strength
friends,
as a
with
leader.
allies
I
around
think it'd be
the
hard
country.
pressed to
And
find
because of
anyone who would say that
Donald
Joe
Trump's
Biden or Barack
unilateral
Obama were
foreign
stronger leaders than Donald Trump. You may say,
not at all.
hey, he's a dick for going in and asking everyone else in NATO to honor their fair share of the agreement. You may not like it, but he actually got it done. Barack Obama didn't. Biden had 48 years. He could have spoken in someone's ear. Instead, he was busy grabbing tits.
Our word, but Donald Trump
kids.
doesn't understand that because he doesn't understand what it means to be honest.
Thank you. Thank you.
Did we forget
Really,
coming
Miss?
from you?
We're not going to ban
Vice President, can somebody
fracking?
give me a
Really,
chance
Miss?
to
No
Well,
answer to the
thank
Green New
you.
Deal, which you just put up on your
President
website?
Trump kept his word when we moved the American embassy to Jerusalem, the capital of the state of Israel.
Boom.
When Joe Biden was
And they
vice president, they promised to do that, and they never did.
Nope.
Oh!
We've
Sorry
stood
about
strong with our allies, but we've been demanding. NATO is now contributing more to our common defense than ever before, thanks to President Trump's
Someone's listening to this stream
We've
talking to
strengthened
him.
our
We better check him for a
Asia
while.
Pacific.
So good.
And we've stood strong against those who would do us harm. You know, when President Trump came into office, ISIS had captured an area of the Middle East the size of Pennsylvania. But President Trump unleashed the American military, and our armed forces destroyed the ISIS caliphate and took down
Wrap
their
that up
leader,
pretty
al-Baghdadi,
Obama and
without
Biden
one
didn't.
American
Yeah, they let it
casualty.
happen. Yeah, that's right. Just
Al-Baghdadi
unmanned drone
was
strikes.
responsible
exactly.
For the death of thousands. But notably, America's hearts today are with the family of Kayla Mueller, her parents of which are here with us tonight in Salt Lake City. Today, two of the ISIS killers responsible for Kayla Mueller's murder were brought to justice in the United States Jihadi John was killed on the battlefield along with the other Beatle. The reality is that when Joe Biden was vice president, we had an opportunity.
It's a little weird.
To save Kayla Miller. It breaks my heart to reflect on it, but the military came into the Oval Office, presented a plan. They said they knew where Kayla was. Baghdadi had held her for 18 months, abused her mercilessly before they killed her. But when Joe Biden was vice president,
here,
they
Kamala,
hesitated
can get you in
for a
trouble.
month. And when armed forces finally went in, it was clear she'd been moved 2 days earlier. And her family says with a heart that broke the heart of every American that if President Donald Trump had been president, they believe Kayla would be alive today.
Thank you, Vice
Look,
President.
we destroyed the ISIS caliphate. And you talk about re-entering the Iran nuclear deal. I mean, the last administration transferred $1.8 billion to the leading state sponsor
Thank you, Vice
of
President.
terrorism. President Donald Trump got us out of the deal.
Thank you, Vice President.
Really?
And
you let her go
Hassan
on with not
Soleimani
answering
was
the Green New
traveling
Deal
to
question, but he's
Baghdad.
actually talking about a life saved from Islamic terrorist
Donald
bricks,
Trump took
and
Thank
you
you,
cut him
Vice
off?
President Pence.
Some would say this
America
matters
is
more than her
safer,
bullshittery.
Our allies are safer, and the American people know President Donald Trump will never
Thank you, Vice President
take
Pence.
action.
I would like to give Senator Harris a chance to respond, but not at such great length because, of
I don't
course, there
think
are other
that's gonna
topics.
work.
I wish they would just have a curtain.
Yes.
That would
No,
come.
I'm not wearing a cup. You don't need to do a cup check.
Standard procedure.
First of
It's
all,
not
to the
standard at
Miller
all.
family,
Leave before I hurt you.
I know about your daughter's case, and
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
Why am I here if I can't sue that guy?
I'm so sorry. What happened to her
You'll
is
get there, man. I
awful,
believe in you.
and it should have never happened.
Yeah, it should have.
And I know Joe feels the same way.
It is, yeah.
And I know that President Obama
I thought we
feels the
checked him
same
out,
way.
but you know.
But you mentioned Soleimani. Let's start there.
Yeah, we killed that guy.
So after the strike on Soleimani,
You pay him, we kill him.
there was
Obama
a
did that.
strike on our troops in
You know
Iraq.
she's going to claim killing bin Laden, which rightfully
And
She didn't do it.
so. No, it's
they
true. but-
suffered
was in SEAL
serious
Team 6.
brain
You know that,
injuries.
so-
And do you know what Donald Trump
can play
dismissed
that
them
I think
as?
she's going to say Black America
Headaches.
did it.
And this is about a pattern of Donald Trump's, where he has referred to
Don't say
our
it.
men who
Don't
are
say it.
serving in our military as
Come on.
suckers and losers.
Liar!
Donald Trump,
Hold on a second.
who went to Arlington
Go fuck
Cemetery
yourself. Just hop off a mayor's
stood
willy for
above
5 minutes
the
if you find the
grave
time, sweetheart.
of our
That's been
fallen
rebuffed. That's been
heroes.
rebuked. That's been debunked by over
And
10
said-
sources, including John Bolton, who really wants it to be true. And by the way, there are email records. The reason Donald Trump didn't visit those troops in that scenario was, in fact, because of weather. There are records. This is what's happening again.
Come on.
He wants you to fact check him on everything. Listen, this should. I will be surprised if a poll shows anyone coming out the victor outside of Mike Pence with a landslide here tonight. And I was objective. I said that Donald Trump did not perform as he needed to at the last debate. Right? In this scenario, this is remarkable when you look at the specifics and the actual facts and data that Mike Pence has been reciting, and then the kind of cheap attacks like that you see from her.
The debunked attacks that only CNN and MSNBC and ABC are still carrying.
It all has
somebody
to rely
puts a
on hearsay.
price on your
Everything
head,
she brings up.
and they will pay
Everything.
it if you are killed. And Donald Trump had talked at least 6 times to
By the way, he's
Vladimir
going to have to defend her
Putin
character, so everyone drink.
and never brought
Bring
up
up the
the
drinking
subject.
rules again for people
Joe
who have
Biden
not
would never
seen
do
them
that.
yet.
Thank
Joe
you.
Biden would, but Joe Biden would hold Russia to account
How?
for any threat
How?
to
Tell
our
me.
nation's
Take more
security
money
or to
from them?
our troops who are
Threaten
You wanna go to war again? Is
sacrificing
that
their
the-
She said hold them
lives
to account.
for the sake of
She
our
meant
democracy and
hold
our
them
safety.
down, referring to Russian hookers while his son gangbangs them.
I want to make sure we have a chance
I really have to
talk about.
respond to that.
I-
Yeah,
what
do
we
it.
know.
Do it.
She has
15 seconds because
Well, I gotta
we're
have
trying
more
to
than
keep.
that. Look.
Well, I'm sorry, but
Take
Vice
what you
President,
want.
but you've had more time than she's had so far.
The slanders against President
answered by
Donald
now.
Trump
Drink has to defend his character,
regarding
told you.
men and women of our armed forces are absurd.
I'm sorry, Vice
My
President
son is
Pence.
a captain in the United
Yes.
States Marine Corps. My son-in-law is
That'll get her
deployed in
shut
the
up.
United States Navy.
Oh.
I can assure all of you, with sons and daughters serving in our military, President Donald Trump not only respects but reveres all of those who serve in our armed forces, and any suggestion otherwise is ridiculous. Let
Thank
me
you,
also
Vice
say
President Pence.
that
Vice
the American
President
people
Pence,
deserve, Susan,
Vice
the
President
American
Pence,
people
I
deserve to
didn't,
know.
Vice President Pence, I did not, excuse me,
Susan, the
I did
American
not
people
create
deserve
the
to know
rules for tonight.
Joe Biden.
Your
can come-
campaigns agreed to the rules for tonight's debate with the Commission on Presidential
But
Debates.
you
I'm here
also agreed to
enforce
the
them,
rules with
which
the
involves
nominee for
moving
Supreme
from
Court
one
and
topic
hearing,
to
and you
another,
accused him of
giving
gang
lots
rape.
of time
You
to
also
vote.
agreed to rules to try and focus on policy. You've let her skirt every single answer, and then she came out and said that he called the troops losers and suckers, which, by the way, has been entirely entirely debunked.
that is
There is no verification on that at all, other than anonymous sources saying that they heard Donald Trump say mean words. That's the platform of the Democratic Party. You want the people running America? It's going to be like a game of telephone with retards.
would cement the court's conservative majority and make it likely open to more abortion restrictions, even to overturning the landmark Roe v. Wade ruling. Access to abortion would then be up to the states.
I love the tweet.
Vice President Pence, you're the former governor of Indiana.
Pardon my language.
If Roe v. Wade is overturned, what would you want Indiana to do? Would you want
By the
your
way,
home
I'm going to need
state
another
to ban
cerveza, please.
all abortions?
You can
have
make
2
it a
minutes,
mo dit
uninterrupted.
because.
Well, thank you for the question, but I'll use a little bit of my time to
Run out.
respond to that very important issue before.
Thank you.
The American people deserve to know Qasem Soleimani, the Iranian general, was responsible for the death of hundreds of American service members. When the opportunity came, we saw him headed to Baghdad
attractive to be in
kill
The
more
Handmaid's Tale.
Americans. President Trump didn't
They all need to
hesitate.
look like
The
feet.
casting call.
Qasem
that's
Soleimani is gone.
looking for a shrew.
But you deserve to know that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris actually criticized the decision to take out Qasem Soleimani. It's really inexplicable, but with regard to Joe Biden, it's explainable. Because history records that Joe Biden actually opposed the raid against Osama bin Laden. It's absolutely essential that we have a commander-in-chief who will not hesitate to act to protect
I'm gonna be
American
honest,
lives
I don't know whether that's
and
true
to
or
protect
not.
American service members, and that's
But
what
looking
you're
it up.
Assuming if it is.
Can Reg the Bandit look it up?
Now, with regard
Fact check it.
to
Did
the
anyone else
Supreme
here know
Court of the
that?
United States,
No, I did not.
I didn't know that.
I will
me
say
say
this, I
President Trump
live
and I
in this
could not be
world, and
more
I did not know that Joseph Biden
About the
opposed the
opportunity
raid
to
on
see
Osama bin
Judge
Laden,
Amy Coney
because
Barrett
that clears the
become
ledger
Justice
of
Amy Coney
any military wins.
Yeah.
And she's a brilliant woman, and she will bring a lifetime of experience and a sizable American family to the Supreme Court of the United States. And our hope is, in the
daughters
hearing
that are
next
blacker
week,
than you
unlike
are,
Justice
Harris.
Kavanaugh received with treatment from you and others, we hope she gets a fair
Thank
hearing.
you, Soleimani.
And we particularly hope
wow.
that we don't
He's
see
back
the
from
kind
the
of
dead.
attacks on her
Continue to burn, sir.
Christian faith that we
Careful,
saw
or Biden will
before.
oppose a raid on him.
I mean, the Democrat chairman of the Judiciary Committee before, when Judge Barrett was being confirmed for the Court of Appeals, expressed concern that the dogma of her faith lived loudly in her. Dick Durbin
That
of
is
Illinois
true.
said
It's a
that
quote.
it was
Kamala Harris
concern.
has a very, very
Senator, I know
well-known
one of our
anti-Catholic
judicial
streak.
nominees, you actually
Well, this was, I think, Dianne
attacked
Feinstein
because they
said
were a
that
member of the
in
Catholic
the
Yeah,
Knights
she's
of
also
Columbus.
she's
Yes.
one of the
Just
worst.
because the
Yeah.
Knights of
Unless they're
Columbus
Catholic
holds
priests
pro-life
molesting
views.
kids.
Thank
That's one of
you.
the rare instances
Thank
where
you,
she
Vice
failed to
President.
prosecute
So
because
time
it was too
is-
much paperwork, so she went after
When the hearing
nonviolent
takes
drug
place,
offenders who were
thank
black.
you,
But outside of that, she's spoken out against and criticized people of
Thank you,
Catholic
Vice
faith
President.
repeatedly.
Senator Harris, you're the senator from and former Attorney General of California. So let me ask you a parallel question to the one I posed to the Vice President.
We do have the headline on the
If Roe v. Wade is
Obama opposing
overturned,
bin Laden.
what would you want
what you guys said
California
today.
to do?
Biden
Would you
opposed
want
the
your
bin
home
Laden
state to
raid.
enact no restrictions
Look at
on
that.
access to abortion?
Oh,
And you
this is
have
absolutely true.
2 minutes
Let me make sure we know this.
uninterrupted.
No restrictions
Thank
on
you,
access to
Susan.
abortion
First of
all the way
all,
up until and including
Joe
birth.
Biden
That
and
is
I
her
are both
policy.
People of faith, and it's insulting to suggest that we would knock anyone for their faith. And in fact,
the
Joe,
quotes?
if elected, will be only the
Let me
second
find. I think I have some quotes here.
practicing Catholic as president of the United States. On the issue of this,
We're getting a little
of this
loose with the term
nomination,
practicing.
Joe and I are very
Can Joe
clear,
take
as are the
communion?
majority of the American people.
I think that smile's
We
her
are
tell.
27
Every time
days
she lies, she
before
does that little
the
smile.
decision about who will be the next president of the United States. And, you know, before, when this conversation has come up, you know, it's been about election year or election time. We're literally in an election. Over 4 million people have voted.
Society. Whoa.
People are in the process of voting right
I believe
now.
I asked you about
So
abortion
Joe
on
has been
demand.
very
Yeah, she asked you about
clear, as
abortion
the
on
American
demand,
people are.
sweetheart. Did
Let
she
the
answer it at
American
all?
people
We're literally
fill
in an
that seat
election,
in the White
Stephen.
House.
Literally.
And then we'll fill
In
that seat on the
an
United
election.
States
Hey,
Supreme Court.
I just
The
fact
point is
checked
that
it.
The issues
He
before
did.
us couldn't be more serious.
Biden's
There's the issue
own
of
quote
choice, and I will always
was that
fight
he
for a
told
woman's
the
right to make
president,
a decision about her
"Don't
own
go."
body. It should
Yep.
be her
To kill a
decision and not
to
that
kill
of
bin
Donald
Laden.
Trump and
Like he was
and the Vice
a
President, Michael
scare
Pence.
mask in
But
a
let's
Halloween
also look
hayride.
at what
Don't
else
go!
is
Like
the
he was just
support.
sitting there like,
If
don't go
you're
take out Osama bin Laden.
Like,
Take the shot.
Literally
Quick
in
question,
the
Kamala.
midst of
What
a
is the
public
Catholic
health
Church's stance
pandemic.
on abortion? Go.
When over 210,000 people have died and 7 million
So,
people
yeah, this is it. She co-sponsored the Women's Health
probably have
Protection
what will
Act,
be in the
which would
future
eliminate
considered a
all
pre-existing condition
limitations
because
or
you-
requirements
you
on
contracted
abortion
the
after
virus.
fetal viability.
Donald Trump is in court right now
If the
trying to
treating
get rid of
healthcare provider
Affordable
decides that the
Care Act.
continuation of a pregnancy could pose a risk, not death, a risk.
Could.
A risk.
For example,
Any risk,
pose
you
a
know.
risk like, I don't
Mental-
really want to have a kid anymore.
Yeah. Well, and it could pose mental risk as well. Like she just can't handle having.
And by the
a
way,
child.
she's also a fascist because she would overturn over 400 limitations on abortions that have been imposed by states, which is well within their right. Let's go back to her not answering the question.
You can't stay on your parents' coverage anymore.
What?
And here's the
Talking
thing.
about healthcare.
The contrast couldn't be more clear.
Gosh,
They're trying to get
if there
rid of the
weren't
Affordable Care
basement
Act.
losers
Joe Biden's
voting for
saying let's
Democrats,
expand
they'd have no
coverage,
base.
but
There's some 20, there's some 26-year-old right now who's like, yeah, just speaking my language. I want to be in my parents' health blue wave.
That's true leadership.
You know, you mentioned earlier, Vice President Pence, that the president was committed to maintaining protections for people with pre-existing conditions. But you do have this court case that you are supporting, your administration supporting, that would strike down the Affordable Care Act.
Yes.
The president says,
Damn straight.
President Trump
Yeah, but
says
they've already-
that he's going to
they've already
protect
signed a
people
bill.
with
I'm not sure
pre-existing
exactly what was
conditions, but he has
signed
not
by Donald
explained
Trump
how
protecting pre-existing
he would
conditions.
do that. And that
That's
was
something they've
one of
already
the
promised, and it's already
purposes
been
when they
made
were
effectively into
passing
law.
the Affordable
And they'll
Care
strike
Act.
down
So
the crappy
tell us
parts.
specifically, how would your administration protect Americans with pre-existing conditions to have access to affordable insurance if the Affordable Care Act is struck
Well, hold on
down?
a second. There's protecting pre-existing conditions and
thank
then
you, Susan.
guaranteeing
Let
affordable
me just
insurance.
say,
How do you have
addressing the very
everyone get on insurance after they develop diabetes
Right.
from a diet of fried Snickers and gym socks, and then they say, well, I'd like to purchase insurance now? How do you keep costs low?
Right.
You can either have an exemption for pre-existing conditions, but it will have to be expensive unless all Americans want to see a multi-100% increase in premiums and deductibles, as we have seen under Obamacare.
Right.
So let's be really clear. You can't have all of the above.
To the moment of birth.
The gym socks are
Late-term
for
abortion.
fiber.
They want to increase funding to Planned Parenthood of America.
Yeah.
Now, for our part, I would never presume how Judge Amy Coney Barrett would rule on the Supreme Court of the United States.
Yeah.
But,
You wouldn't want to
we'll continue
mansplain,
to stand
Harris.
strong for the right to life. When you speak about the Supreme Court, though, I think the American people really deserve an answer, Senator Harris.
Oh yes. Here we go.
Are you and Joe Biden going to pack the court?
Shark
if
with
Judge Amy
laser beam
Coney
attached
Barrett
to
is
his head.
confirmed? I mean, there have been 29
answer.
vacancies on the Supreme Court during presidential election years, from George Washington to Barack Obama. Presidents have nominated in all 29 cases. But your party is actually openly advocating adding seats to the Supreme Court, which has had 9 seats for 150 years, if you don't get your way. This is a classic case of if you can't win by the rules, you're going to
After,
change
now
the rules.
leave her
Now,
the
you've
floor.
refused to answer the question. Joe Biden has refused to answer the question. So I think the American people would really like to know, if Judge Amy Coney Barrett is confirmed to the Supreme Court of the United States, are you and Joe Biden, if somehow you win this election, going to pack the Supreme Court to get your way?
I'm so glad we went through a little history lesson. Let's do that a little more.
And not answer the question.
She's trying to accuse
In
him of mansplaining.
1864.
Well, I'd like you to answer the
No,
question.
Mr. Vice President. so you
Answer
can-
any question ever! Ever!
Stay-
Ever, you
In
biracial nightmare!
1864, one of the, I
She gonna
think,
go back to her
political
birth
heroes,
again?
certainly of the president, I assume if you also, Mr. Vice President,
I was
is
born
Abraham
in
Lincoln.
Kaiser Hospital in Oakland.
Abraham Lincoln
Okay, I'm adding
was
to the
up
drinking
for
game.
re-election.
Every time she does not answer
And
a
it was
question,
27
drink.
days
I
before
do
the
not
election.
advocate people dying. Please do
And
not follow
a
that
seat
rule.
became open
That's
on the
every
United
time.
States Supreme Court. Abraham Lincoln's party was in charge not only of the White House, but the Senate.
Who was not in session
But Honest Abe said it's not the right thing to do.
because
The
nobody was
American
in
people
town, lady.
deserve to make the decision
Civil War.
about who will be the next president of the United States.
And you had to go back to
Civil War.
1964 to
Who will
find an
serve for a
example that you
lifetime
shoehorned into
on the
fitting that
highest
doesn't even
court
fit.
What about the
of
other
our
28?
land.
Hey, by the way,
And
you
so
gonna pack the
Joe
courts?
and I are very clear. The American
You gonna pack the
people
courts?
are
Are
voting
you gonna pack the
right
courts?
now.
Are you gonna
And
pack
it
the
should
courts?
be
I'm
their
done with this
decision
broad.
about who will
I may have been
serve
mistaken.
on this most important body for a lifetime.
Are you gonna pack the courts?
Thank you,
And-
Senator
Are
Harris.
you gonna moderator? Do your fucking job. Are you gonna pack the courts?
Pack the
Are you gonna
Supreme
pack the
Court
courts? Mike Pence had to ask the question that every American wants to know. She shucked it, and you didn't follow up.
Joe Biden
He's
gave
asking
a
again.
non-answer.
Trying to answer you
The
now.
American people deserve a straight answer. And
You didn't
and if you haven't
answer.
figured it out, you
Drink
have the straight answer is
angrily.
they are going to pack the Supreme Court if they somehow win this election. Men and
Mr.
women,
Vice President,
I got to
I
tell you,
think
people across this country, if you cherish our Supreme
Yeah,
Court,
why do you want to
if
erode trust
cherish
in
the
American
separation of powers, you need
institutions?
to reject the
Miss Andy
Biden-Harris
McAnderson?
ticket come November the 3rd, re-elect President Donald Trump, and we'll stand by that separation of powers in a 9-seat Supreme Court.
Yeah, let's talk about packing the court then. Let's talk about that.
Let's talk about it.
Answer it.
To.
Well, don't say a mansplaining. He asked you to get an
Trump-Pence
answer.
administration has been, because I sit on the Senate Judiciary Committee, Susan, as you mentioned, and I've witnessed the appointments for lifetime appointments to the federal courts, district courts, courts of appeal. People who are purely ideological, people who have been reviewed
Qualified
by
candidates.
People
by
I
legal
don't agree
professional
with.
organizations and found to have been not competent, are substandard. And do you know
According to you, huh?
that of
I'm
the
getting my
50
drinking hand ready.
people who President Trump appointed to the Court of Appeals for lifetime appointments,
Are you going to pack the courts?
not one is black?
What is that? What?
They've been doing. You want to talk about packing
Okay.
the court? Let's have that discussion.
Well,
then
All right,
answer the
thank
question.
you,
In that
thank you,
case, you
Senator.
wouldn't
Let's go
qualify.
on and talk about
Wow.
the issue of
Let's
Wow.
talk about it without
justice.
talking.
She
You
had
got
two
it,
chances,
Mr.
man.
Moderator. I'm sorry, but do your fucking
Well,
job,
maybe the
sweetheart.
next
Otherwise,
Joe
we're going to
Biden
see
will
for
answer
years
the
to
question.
come
I think
people
the
saying this
American
is why
people
broads
will.
Thank
shouldn't
you, Vice
moderate
President.
debates when there are broads on stage. I get your
In
little
March,
sisterhood of the
Breonna
traveling
Taylor, a
bullshit,
26-year-old
but
emergency
call her
room
on it
technician
now.
in Louisville
Call her
was
to
shot
the
and
mat.
killed
That was 3
after
times
police
that he had to
officers
do your
executing
job and
search
ask if she
warrant
would
in
pack
Come
the
on.
course.
investigation broke into her apartment.
Every answer
police
from Pence
said
should be,
they identified
so will
themselves.
you pack the courts?
Taylor's boyfriend said he didn't
Yeah.
hear them do that. He used a gun, registered plan, to fire a shot, which
Yeah,
wounded an
I think
officer.
it's a little bit
The
tough.
officers then fired
Yeah, I
more
think you
than
gotta,
20 rounds into
you
the
can,
apartment.
yeah, cut my
They
eye.
were acting
Yeah, you gotta
in
cut it.
self-defense.
You gotta cut it.
Just
Cut it.
your
Cut the eye. Cut the.
Connection.
Cut the eye. Yeah.
Senator
Yeah.
Harris,
Good.
the case
Okay.
of
All right.
Breonna Taylor
Okay. Thank you.
Jeez.
was justice done.
thanks.
Oh my gosh.
Wow, I
Everybody
didn't.
okay?
Yeah.
I don't believe
What?
so.
Why did he's good?
Oh,
He's still,
that's true.
he's
It
still
helps me
good.
see better.
Brianna's mother, Tamika Palmer,
You just
and her
didn't-
family. And her family deserves justice.
get
She
him
was a
back in there.
beautiful young woman. She had as her life goal to
We're talking
become a
about
nurse,
Breonna
and she
Taylor
wanted to
now.
become an EMT to first learn what's going on
Did Mike
out on the
Pence
street,
shoot Breonna
so she
Taylor?
could then
Yeah.
become a nurse
Apparently
and save
so. He was the
Why are we
former-
talking about
Apparently,
this?
taken.
Mike Pence's stance on
Unjustifiably
Breonna
and
Taylor, who, by the way, was not
tragically
asleep, was in the hall, and from what I understand,
And it
actually was
just
the one who
it
likely
brings
shot at
me
the cops.
to
Really?
Yeah,
That's what I
that's what the
heard.
boyfriend said, but then he went back and then he said it again. Apparently, that's more relevant than a direct question. Hey, will you pack the courts, Kamala Harris? Hey, why is the Green New Deal on your website? It must be nice to be a Democrat woman and have to answer for nothing.
Zero.
Whereas when you're Amy Coney Barrett, you have to answer New York Times op-eds as to whether your adoption of underprivileged black children is modern-day slave ownership. Must be nice to be Kamala Harris. Just never called to account for anything you say or do.
marched shoulder to shoulder, arm in arm,
During COVID,
fighting
but it was okay.
for us to finally achieve that ideal of equal justice under law.
Really?
And I was a
What
part
does
of
the
those
science say
peaceful
about
protests.
COVID and Molotov cocktails?
And
Peaceful
I
protests,
believe
huh?
I know I
It was
can't,
mostly
I
peaceful.
can't expect
that, first of all, we are
a
never
golden
gonna
standard clinical
condone
trial, but
violence,
maybe there's an
but we
abstract somewhere in PubMed.
must fight for the values that we hold dear, including the fight to achieve our ideals. And that's why Joe Biden and I have said on this subject, look, and I'm a former career prosecutor. I know what I'm talking about. Bad cops are
you wanna
bad
talk
for
about
good
that?
cops.
I know what I'm
We need reform.
You wanna talk about
of
that career
our
you had?
policing in America and our criminal justice system, which is why Joe and I will immediately ban chokeholds and carotid holds. George Floyd would be alive today if we did that. We
George
will
Floyd did not
require
have a
a
No, he
carotid
national
hold.
registry
Nope.
As a matter of fact,
for
it would have been
police
safer if they
officers
could have
who
used a
break the law.
chokehold because he
We
actually
will,
could have
on
gone
the issue of criminal
unconscious
justice
as opposed to
reform,
having a knee
get
in
rid
his
of
cervical
private
spine,
prisons
dummy.
I'm
and cash
fine.
bail.
Yeah,
And
and
we
I
will
choked.
legalize marijuana,
Maybe we can bring that up
and
as
we
zero.
will-
I choked
we will
out
expose
audio
the
Wade
records
on
of
air.
those
I've
who
been
have
choked
been
unconscious
convicted
at
of
least
marijuana.
8 times.
Thank you,
Anyone who's done Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu has.
Yeah.
On a
I accidentally did it to you almost.
Overdose.
Senator Harris,
You saw stars.
Black people in America.
bad.
who have
Thank you,
been
Senator.
killed.
Let's ban guns for cops. Let's ban
Vice
chokeholds.
President
Let's ban
Pence, let me pose the
tasers.
same
No
question.
sticks
It
either.
doesn't. Yeah, no
They
sticks.
just
In the case
get
of
Nerf
Breonna
guns.
Can't have that.
Taylor, was justice
Give him a
done?
whistle.
You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Oh boy, leading question: was justice done? Holy shit!
Wow.
Yeah.
For the loss of any innocent American life. And the family of Breonna Taylor has our sympathies. But I trust our justice system.
Bitch makes this
A
makes
grand jury that
Chris
refused
Wallace
the
look like
evidence.
Yeah.
John Stossel.
I was
And it
gonna
really
say,
is
this double team is
remarkable
worse
that as a
than the last
former
one.
prosecutor,
Blame the grand jury.
you would
if
assume
have
that
a
an
problem in
impaneled
this case.
grand jury looking at all the evidence got it wrong.
Yeah.
But you're entitled to your opinion.
A grand
Senator.
jury of your peers
I think-
said no charges.
And with regard to
Black
George Floyd, there's no excuse for what happened to George Floyd.
Quite a few.
And justice will be served.
But he wasn't.
But there's also no excuse for the rioting and looting
Yep.
that followed. I mean,
Yeah, why don't we ask her about her,
really
is it the Minnesota Freedom Fund, the bail fund, which, by the way, set free. She was tweeting out support for it. Let me find this. I want to make sure I don't get. I want to make sure I don't get these crimes incorrect. The Minnesota Freedom Fund, she supported, tweeted out, paid $100,000 to free Darnica Floyd, who stabbed a friend to death, paid $350,000 to free Christopher Boswell, a twice convicted, not charged, I hope you'll appreciate that, Half Asian Bill, twice convicted rapist who's currently charged with kidnapping, assault, sexual assault, then $75,000 to free Jaleel Stallings, gonna get a what, who shot members of a SWAT team during the riots in May. Give a shout out to all of them, sweetheart. Since you raised their money.
Money well spent on their terms.
Is a great insult to the men and women who serve in law enforcement. And I want everyone to know who puts on the uniform of law enforcement every day. And President Trump and I stand with you.
Smelled.
And it is remarkable that when Senator Tim Scott tried to pass
Are you sure about those back in the courts?
Brought together a group of Republicans and Democrats, Senator Harris,
fly away.
You got up and walked out of the room. And then you filibustered Senator Tim Scott's bill on the Senate floor that would have provided new accountability, new resources. Look, we don't have to choose between supporting law enforcement, improving public safety, and supporting our African-American neighbors, all of our minorities. Under President Trump's leadership, we'll always stand with law enforcement, and we'll do what we've done from day one and improve the lives of African Americans.
Now, don't forget, we've got Blaze Chat after this.
That's right. We have Blaze Chat. Our wrap up exclusively at loudofcreditor.com/mugclub. I'm surprised it hasn't been removed tonight, but get rid of that fly.
I know, it's a little weird.
I gotta ask.
Go ahead. Vice President, on what it means to enforce the laws of our country. I am the only one on this stage who was personally prosecuted.
Arrested non-violent drug offenders. What they want to go free. What were you about to say there, Half Asian Bill?
I was going to say, in terms of the question, I want to hear what was the best answer you heard or question you heard from Biden. And the reason being is that there was a real great question in there.
There's true.
And it was about packing the courts if you didn't hear it.
From Pence.
From Pence.
I want to have that on a loop like a morphine drip.
We are talking about an election in 27
I'm not sure that it didn't leave her mouth with
last
pestilence.
week, the President of the United States took a debate
like she grabbed the warden's crotch in the Green Mile.
Like in Constantine.
White supremacists.
Not true.
And
not true.
Oh, boy. It wasn't like he didn't have a chance.
How about you condemn the $2 billion in damages, the 14,000 arrests, the 1,000 officer casualties, 30 people dead? Over 500 riots across the country, sweetheart. And by the way, you freed criminals who were convicted rapists. You tweeted out support for a fund. How about you answer that? Also, you gonna pack the courts?
He called
the fly's gone, thank God.
Rapists and criminals.
Rapists? You freed them. You did that. You put nonviolent drug offenders behind bars, and then you supported the Minnesota Freedom Fund that let convicted rapists out.
The need for racial justice, where a young woman was killed, and on the other side there were neo-Nazis carrying tiki torches, shouting racial epithets,
wasn't the only people there.
Anti-Semitic slurs.
Oh,
and
come on,
Donald
since
Trump,
when
when
do you
asked
care about
about it,
anti-Semitism?
said there were fine people on both sides.
Oh,
really?
Oh my! Okay, listen. I have not said this before. This is a very clear line now between good and evil.
Yes.
These are flat out lies. Green New Deal. It's on your website. Do you support it? Not answering. Packing the courts. Do you support it? Not answering. Donald Trump called troops suckers and losers. Completely verifiably debunked. She set free twice convicted rapists, and now she says something that we all know is a lie. Just watch that video. You can go watch type in Stephen Kreider, Donald Trump, white supremacist. You can watch the entire video in context where he said several times at that meeting, I'm not talking about white supremacists and neo-Nazis who should be condemned totally, absolutely. She is lying. She doesn't care that she's lying, and she doesn't plan on you knowing because the moderator isn't doing her job, and she knows that the rest of the media will follow suit of that moderator tomorrow morning. This should get 500 Pinocchios, which she would proceed to rub back and forth vigorously if it were a mayoral position. Go ahead.
This is a president who respects and cherishes all of the American people. But you talk about having personally prosecuted.
She slept with the mayor.
I'm glad you brought up that, Senator.
Thank you.
But I really need to make this point. When you were DA in San Francisco, when you left office, African Americans were 19 times more likely to be prosecuted for minor drug offenses than whites and Hispanics. When you were Attorney General
Straight down
of
the pipe.
California,
No, keep
you
going. Right in the-
increased
right in the kisser.
the disproportionate incarceration of
Thank
blacks
you.
in California.
Hit him.
You did
Answer.
nothing on criminal justice reform in California. You didn't lift a finger
he's
to
good.
pass the First Step Act on Capitol Hill. I mean, the reality is your record
Thank
speaks
you,
for
Vice
itself.
President
President
Pence.
Trump and I have fought for criminal justice reform.
Thank you, Vice President
We fought for
Pence.
educational choice and
I said
opportunities for
thank you.
African Americans, all of our
Thank you,
minorities.
sir.
And we'll do it for 4
Thank you.
Thank you.
There is
Kamala
no
Harris,
we threw that
question
in
for
there.
you.
than the final
Do you prefer
issue
peanuts
that we're going
or
to talk
tree
about
nuts?
tonight, and that is
Final
the
issue.
of the election
Final issue.
itself.
He attacked my record. I would like an opportunity to respond.
Let me give you 30 seconds.
He
because
eliminated your
we-
record. He
because we're
didn't
running
actually
out of
attack
time.
I
it. He
appreciate
just said
that.
what you did.
First of all, having served as the Attorney General of the state of California,
10
the
seconds
work
wasted.
that I did is a model of what our nation needs to do.
Oh, really?
And we will be able to do under a Joe Biden presidency.
More of that.
Our agenda
Okay.
includes
Bring
what
this up
this
here really
administration
quickly.
has
We'll
failed
take you
to
at
do.
your
I just want to make sure
It
that
will
I
be
have
about
this
not only
correct.
instituting a ban on chokeholds and carotid holes.
Thank you.
Not only,
Thank you, Senator.
I would like to go
She
through-
opposed
These
Mayor.
are
There we
points
go.
that were made
Final
earlier in the
round.
hour, and I want to talk about the election itself.
Is it
before
round
we have-
five?
But I
Thank
want
you,
to talk
Amy.
about
Wow,
the
that's,
connection between what Joe
that's
and I will
coercion,
do
I
and
think.
my record.
Thank you,
Which
Solomani.
includes, I was
Doing
the
the job that
first
Americans refuse to do.
statewide officer to institute a requirement that my agents
As a
who wear
prosecutor, she
body
opposed
cameras and
marijuana
keep them
legalization.
on
She kept inmates jailed for use as cheap labor longer than their sentences, and she supported the death penalty. And she imprisoned over 1,500 people on marijuana charges.
Yeah.
Implicit
In
bias
prison,
does
you
exist,
say.
And then
Mr.
raise
Vice
money to free
President,
twice convicted
contrary to what
That's
you may
right.
believe.
It does
We
make
did
sense.
the work of instituting reforms that were about investing in reentry. This is the work that we have done
How's
and the
that
work
worked
we will
out?
do going forward. And again, I will not be lectured by the Vice President
Yes, you will.
Yeah,
You'll
you will.
take it.
on our record
You'll take it and say thank you, sir. May I
of
have
what
another?
we have
By
done
the
in
way,
terms of
you
law
wanna back to
enforcement
courts?
and keeping our communities safe and a commitment to reforming the criminal justice system of America.
You never
Thank
did
you,
it when you had the
Senator
chance.
Harris, and I'd
Never
like
did
to
it.
pose
You just
the-
locked up.
First,
You just
I'd like you to
locked
respond
up some
first to
guys
the
dropping
question on our
mixtapes and
final
smoked some
topic,
reefer.
the election itself.
She had nothing.
President Trump has
Tupac,
several
you're in
times
college.
refused to commit himself
She tried to use
a peaceful
RICO on Kid
transfer of
Cudi.
power after the election. If your ticket wins and President Trump refuses to accept a peaceful
Lord.
transfer of power, what steps
Leading
would
question.
you, Vice
Lord.
President Biden then take?
Some
What would
leading bullshit
happen
right there.
next? You have 2 minutes.
So I'll tell you, Joe and I are, I think, particularly proud
good buds.
of
Joe
Proud
and
of
I.
what?
the coalition that we've built around our campaign. We probably have one of the broadest coalitions of folks that you've ever seen in a presidential
Doesn't include
race.
blacks
Of
and
course, we have
Latinos and the typical
support of Democrats,
Democrat
but also
voting numbers.
independents and Republicans. In fact, 7 members of President George W. Bush's cabinet are supporting our ticket. We have the support of
That's old guard, man.
Colin Powell, Cindy McCain, John Kasich.
Going to promote Uggs while you're at it?
Over 500 generals, retired
for the
generals,
Bush
and
crowd.
former
Also,
national security experts and
I'm not supposed
advisors
to
are
say-
supporting our campaign.
Matchbox 20.
And I
is
believe
gonna-
they are doing that because
Wow.
they know
The
that
people who
Joe
are
Biden
Bush.
I celebrate their
has
entire
a deep,
catalog.
deep-seated commitment to fight for our democracy and to fight
What's
for the
this thumb
integrity
thing?
of our
That's how you know
democracy.
she's
that's
full of
the
crap.
Bring
Obama
integrity
thumb.
back to
Remember
the
that?
White
Well,
House.
Clinton did it first.
Political.
And so we
Bring
believe
that
in the
thumb out.
American
It's an
people.
invented
We
gesture.
believe in our democracy. And here's what I'd like to say to everybody. Vote. Please vote. Vote early. Come up with a plan to vote. Go
almost
to
said vote often.
iwillvote.com. You can
Vote
also go
often.
to
If you're
to
dead, it doesn't
joebiden.com.
matter.
We have
If
it
you get a
within our
ballot for
power
somebody
in
else,
these
just
next
vote. You know
27
them.
days.
You know what they would do.
Give
to
me
make
your
the
vote.
decision
Make it
about
twice
what
and
will
let's
be
forget
the
about it. They're
course
going to be
of
their
our
inauguration.
lives for the next 4 years. And it is within our power, and if we use our vote and we use our voice,
At the inauguration.
we will
It's
win.
Matchbox 20, yeah.
And we will not let anyone subvert our democracy with what Donald Trump has been doing, as he did on the debate stage last week, when again in front of 70 million people, he openly attempted to suppress the vote.
Oh, really? How?
Joe Biden, on the other hand, on that same debate stage, because clearly Donald Trump doesn't think
Well,
he
the
can run on a
1,500
record because
nonviolent
it's a
drug
failed
offenders
record.
being locked up.
Joe
Is that
Biden
kind
on
of
that
suppressing the
stage
vote?
said, hey, just please vote.
What
So I'll
margins did
repeat
you
what
win
Joe
by?
said. Please vote.
Thank you, Senator. Vice President Pence, President Trump has several times refused to
Yeah,
commit
it's not-
himself to
Hey.
a peaceful transfer of power after the election.
Let's focus
If
on the
Vice
facts. Let's focus on
President Biden is
policies.
declared the
Call
winner
me
and
to the
President Trump
floor
refuses
and
to
fact
accept
check
the
me.
peaceful
It's
transfer of
I
power,
want the lowest
what would be
common
your role
possible
and
denominator to
responsibility
go
as
out and
Vice
vote, and I
President? What
hope
would
you don't
you
understand the
personally
bloodbath that
do?
took place
You have to-
tonight.
Well, Susan, first and foremost, I
That was
think
a
we're going to
leading
win this
question
election.
going on
Yeah.
there, too.
Yeah.
It's like
Because
wounded
while Joe
biracial
Biden
knee.
and Kamala Harris rattle off a long litany of the establishment in Washington, D.C., an establishment that Joe Biden's been a part of for 47 years. President Donald Trump
180.
has launched a
I'm gonna correct
movement
you.
of everyday Americans from every walk of life. And I have every confidence that those same Americans that delivered that historic victory in 2016, they see this president's record where we rebuild our military.
Back to the record.
We revived our economy through tax cuts and rolling back regulation,
Look at that.
fighting
Her
for
close
fair
was
trade,
anyone
unleashing
who
American
you
energy.
can get on a bus
We
with a
appointed
sandwich,
conservatives to our federal
get them
courts at every
to
level.
vote twice.
And
It's
we
like,
stood
please look
with
at our
the men
record.
and women of law
Please go to our
enforcement every
website.
single
Please
day.
fact check us.
Yeah.
I think that
And by the way,
movement
they will
of
fact check him,
Americans has
and not
only
her.
grown stronger in the last 4 years. But when you talk about accepting the outcome of the election, I must tell you, Senator, your party has spent the last 3.5 years trying to overturn the results of the last election. It's amazing. When Joe Biden was vice president of the United States, the FBI actually spied on President Trump and my campaign. I mean, there were documents released this week that the CIA actually made a referral to the FBI documenting that those allegations were coming from the Hillary Clinton campaign. And of course, we've all seen the avalanche.
That's strange, isn't it?
What you put the country through
Weird.
for
By the way, are you sure
better
about
part
backing those
of
courts?
3 years until it was found that there was no obstruction, no
You should end on
collusion,
that.
case closed. And then Senator Harris, you and your colleagues in the Congress tried to impeach the President of the United States over a phone call. And now Hillary Clinton has actually said to Joe Biden that in her words, under no circumstances should he concede the election. So let me just say, I think we're going to win this election. President Trump and I are fighting every day in courthouses to prevent Joe Biden and Kamala Harris from changing the rules and creating this universal mail-in voting that will create a massive opportunity for voter fraud. And we have a free and fair election.
Someone
we know
called
we're
the
going to
cops
have
would like to
confidence in
report a
it.
domestic
And I believe in
disturbance.
all my heart that President Donald Trump's going to be
brutal.
reelected for 4 more years.
You know, I've written all the questions that I've asked tonight. but
Don't
for the
forget we
final
need Blaze
question of
chat.
the debate,
You
I'd
wrote
like
those?
to read a question that someone else wrote. The Utah Debate Commission asked
What were you saying,
students in
We
the
need
state
Blaze chat. Don't
That's true.
forget.
Blaze
to write
chat.
Best
essays about
questions
what
from the
Best
night.
question of the night.
to ask you.
Here we
For
go.
live.com/Muckleb. On the Blaze, people who are watching on the Blaze. We'll be taking your chat exclusively,
She's an
going
eighth
behind the
grader
paywall.
at Springville Junior High in Springville, Utah. And here's what she wrote, quote, "When I watch the news, all I see is arguing between Democrats and Republicans. When I watch the news, all I see is citizen fighting against citizen. When I watch the news, all I see are two candidates from opposing parties trying to tear each other down. If our
an
leaders
election.
can't get along, how are the citizens supposed to get along?" And then she added,
It's
"Your
pretty hard for
examples
citizens to get along
could
when
make
this
all
broad's
the
freeing
difference
twice
to
convicted
bring us
rapists.
together." Get along. So to each of you in turn, I'd
Crying
like you
out
to
loud,
take
she's
1
turning the
minute
streets into like
and
I Am
respond
Legend with
to
rapists.
Brecklin. Vice President Pence,
You have to curl up in the tub and
Brecklin, it's a
close the
wonderful
metal
question.
shades. Kamala's nearby.
And,
There must be a couple of convicted
Let me
rapists
just
running
commend you for
around.
taking an interest in public life.
Like the hounds of hell.
I started following the news when I was very young.
Yeah, we
And in
believe that.
America, we believe
We
in a free
believe all
and
the kids
open
reading
exchange
Captain
of
America.
debate.
You had a subscription to Newsweek.
And we see
you bought from some guy who was shot in the
It's how
face,
we've
went door to
created
door
literally
selling magazine
the freest
subscriptions.
and most prosperous nation in the history of the world. And I would tell you
Somewhere
that,
in your past, there's both
don't
a series
assume
of
that what you're
wedgies
seeing
and a stamp
on
collection.
your local
We buy it.
news networks.
But that's what prepared you
is
for
synonymous
tonight.
with the American people. You know, I look at the relationship between Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the late justice who we just lost from the Supreme Court, and the late Justice Antonin Scalia. They were on polar opposites on the Supreme Court of the United States, one very liberal, one very conservative. But what's been learned since her passing was the two of them and their families.
Because she didn't
the
accuse
very
him of
closest
being a
of friends.
neo-Nazi.
I mean, here in America,
Or
we
a
can
gang
disagree.
rapist.
We can debate vigorously, as Senator
get invited
Harris
over
and I
for
have
Thanksgiving on that
on
one.
this stage tonight. But when the debate is over,
Remind
we
me to
come
go
together
back
as
to,
Americans.
I have a
And that's what people
tidbit
do
about
in
change
big
my mind
cities and
behind the
small
paywall
towns
that would
all
relate
across
to this
country.
idea
So
of civility.
I just want to encourage
Don't let me
you,
forget.
Brecklin. I want to tell you that
Because I might forget.
Don't.
we're going to work every day to have government as good as our people. And the American people each and every day
She's going to
love a
work hard
good
every day to have
debate.
government as good
We
as
love
the
a good
rioters.
argument. but we always come together and are always there for one another.
Thank you,
in
Vice
times of
President.
need. And we've especially learned that.
Now that you've issued your closing
Thank you,
statement,
Mr.
I would
Vice
like to
President.
present
Difficulties
the socially distanced
Senator
crowd.
Harris, what would you
please
say to
proceed to
Brooklyn?
Soccer Riot.
First of all, I love hearing from our young leaders. And when I hear her words, when I hear your words, Brecklin, I know our future is bright because it is that perspective on who we are and who we should be that is a sign of leadership and is something we should all aspire to be. And that, that brings me to Joe.
And something
Joe
we should all
Biden,
aspire to blow.
one of the reasons that Joe decided
Another
to
B
run
word.
for president is after Charlottesville, which we talked about earlier.
Which you lied about
It's
earlier.
so
you lied
troubled
about
him
earlier.
and upset him like it did all of us, that there was that kind of hate.
It's because he
and
wanted a
division.
tiki
By the way,
torch.
there was one
what
death in
propelled Joe to run
Charlottesville,
for
which of course
president
horrible and
was
should
to
be
see
condemned
that
as Donald
over
Trump
the
did.
past 4 years.
That's not even close to the over 30 deaths at the over 500 violent riots with 1,000
Yeah.
officer casualties, 14,000 arrests, and $2 billion in damage. It's not even close.
I
I think that's like a 45-minute stretch in Chicago over the weekend.
Has a history
One death.
of lifting
You're gonna
people
give-
up
it's a
and
24
fighting
minute
for their
stretch.
dignity.
You've run the numbers.
I mean, you have to know Joe's story to know that Joe has known pain, he has known suffering, and he has
My buddy
known
Joe.
love. And so,
And he loves
Brecklin,
little
when you
girls,
think about
all
the
of them.
future,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
by
do
the way,
believe the future
didn't
is
you
bright.
accuse him of loving too
And
much?
it will be
little
because
bit.
of your leadership.
Didn't you say that he
Unwelcome.
believed his accusers
Because we fight for each
who in graphic
person's
detail
voice through their
described
vote,
sexual assault?
and we get engaged.
Didn't you also say
in
that he was a
this
racist,
election
like a
because
rapey Jim Crow?
You have the ability through
Like
your
just
work
a little
and
bit
through
of a
eventually
horny
Thank you,
David Duke,
determine the future of our country and what its leadership looks like.
just a handsy Robert
Thank you,
Byrd. Isn't that how you
Senator
described
Harris.
him?
Thank you, Vice President Pence. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. We want to thank also the University of Utah for
We
its
wanna thank,
hospitality.
not me.
And most of all, our
Hey, I've got one more
thanks to all the
question for
Americans.
Blaze Chat,
Yes.
if it's okay.
Yeah.
I want to hear what was the question or topic you wish was asked of either candidate that didn't get in. This is the
do you
one
mean
VP
from
one.
the moderator? How about packing those courts?
Yeah,
How
well,
about
we
packing
like
those
that
courts
question.
there, Kamala? Instead, Pence had to ask it twice and didn't get an answer.
3 times, I think, actually.
Did he ask 3
I
times?
think it was 3 times.
Third time's the charm. And
Three
no,
times.
not for Pence it was. No, tonight, more like 5th time could have been the charm. Or if Susan was doing her fucking job. All right, by the way, thank you so much to everyone who has tuned in. The promo code is Crowder Debate Stream. That's the hashtag. You get $20 off if you join Mug Club here within the next 24 hours. Next week, we have the presidential debate, which we will be covering. The theme is going to be professional wrestling, the golden years of professional wrestling, namely the 80s and 90s.
The Von Erichs, baby.
So get your costumes ready. And I think before we go to give our final thoughts, so look at Harris. Her husband has a mask. And that's just an excuse to not kiss her. It's like, I don't know where that Miles has been.
I can't.
How many mayors?
How
many senators? State senators. The principle's the same.
State senators?
That's worse.
Yeah, that's literally worse.
I know, but my point is,
make it
I know, but that's my point. Is she doesn't know how to form a cogent argument.
Oh my god.
She's like a Atreus horse in the quicksand.
That's true. I think that mask is covering his eyes. Jeez.
All right, let's see who the
By
winner
the
is
medium.
of the costume contest tonight. And then we'll watch a little bit of CNN before we go for Mug Club exclusive.
Yeah.
Winner of the costume contest.
Winner of the costume contest is J.R. Valentine. There we go. He's in his
very
warm-up
nice.
gear.
That's a
American
romper.
flag warm-up.
Good for
Yeah.
you.
We gave
So
a
there we
romper
go.
a prize?
We gave a
haven't seen a
romper a
romper.
prize.
Oh.
Thank you. Let's go to
Long
see. I want to see what
time.
they
Yeah,
are
let's
saying
see
right
their
now. If they're
reflections.
admitting
Yeah.
that
His
was
performance,
a
it was more
catastrophe.
standard. There is, I think, a disparity in terms of some of the unanswered questions. Both of them did a lot of dodging. Harris wouldn't answer
Both?
the question
No.
about the
No, he did not.
acting.
No.
And that's significant,
Okay,
and
what's
Biden
his
and Harris should
example?
answer it. But on the other hand, Pence wouldn't answer the question about why the U.S. death rate from COVID is so much worse than any other wealthy country.
'Cause it's not.
And he wouldn't commit to a peaceful transfer of power. So while they both
What?
dodged questions, I
They
can't
didn't
help but
ask him to
think
commit to it.
these ones that Pence dodged are somewhat more significant.
Of course they are.
Tapper, come on. Someone stuff that guy in a locker. Please, come on. Let's be really clear. The question that should have been asked right now, the number one topic that people are discussing outside of this manufactured outrage of Donald Trump showing up on a balcony somewhere, like they think he's going to be John Wilkes Booth walking up behind. He is the president. You should be concerned about who's walking up behind him in the balcony. They're trying to act as though the main question, which should have been asked tonight, Are you going to pack the courts, which Pence did 2, you say 3 times. I remember twice.
Back to the judge's
and she didn't
card.
answer, as though that is as pointed of a question, as though that is not more of a pointed question than, Pence, what do you think about Donald Trump not committing to a peace?
She didn't answer any questions.
She answered none.
At
She didn't
all.
answer on the Green New Deal. She didn't answer on the packing the courts. She answered on nothing.
Yeah,
But
and
Stephen,
on the raising of taxes, didn't answer that. And by the way,
You got her life
CNN,
story.
This is exactly like CNN to pivot back to the 2 things that they think scare Americans the most right now. COVID.
Yeah.
They've got their death count all the time on that channel.
Those are the
and
most poignant,
saying
important
that when
questions.
Donald Trump loses, he will just stay in office, guys. We have to get him
And by
out.
the way, Americans, I hope you're
That's what
paying
they're
attention
saying.
because COVID will go away. The joblessness won't. Let's see what Abby Fatlip has to say.
Even when it wasn't his turn, and then he was given
That's a dog
time
whistle.
to go over by 30 seconds here, 45
I mean it because
seconds
everybody
there.
got a fat
I mean,
lip
these are
tonight from Mike
technicalities,
Pence. He
but
just
in the
went
moment,
through
what
throwing
it means
haymakers.
is
Like
that
he was
you
like
got, you
if this were a bar fight, Mike Pence stuck his back against the wall so that no one could get behind him and just threw them. And everyone on this panel has a fat lip because they are Democratic activists.
Not this person. She has fake skinny lips.
Didn't
They're
answer
very
the
evil.
question
She has
at all.
penciled in lips.
Completely in a different direction.
So something also that I think we can't ignore is the concept of gender. And we're certainly
doesn't
seeing
exist.
white men, but definitely men on
We can't
the stage
ignore
when it
the
comes to being on the
concept of
ticket.
gender.
Senator Harris is only the 3rd woman to be on the ticket. The first one was in 1984 with Geraldine Ferraro.
Jake
Then we had to
Tapper,
wait till
I hate
I'm sorry,
all
she's
that you
the 4th.
choose
And
to
in
be.
2008,
That's acknowledging she lost.
Yeah,
right.
Nobody
Everything
said
here has been
that.
acknowledging
And
that she
I
lost.
wonder if
This
a
is the
woman
language of
candidate feels
people
like she
who all have
can't
black eyes and fat lips.
Yeah.
Or
man.
steamroll as much.
I feel like every single one of them here were watching this debate like they were in the chair in Total Recall.
It should be that way, but I'm
Good
wondering
job,
if it is that
Tomas.
way.
Well, I'll tell you this, and Abby, I want to get your thoughts on this. I was texting
Dana
with
bashed.
a friend who is
Abby
an African American man, saying,
tapped
"Do you
out."
think that she's
you have Tourette's.
letting
Yeah.
something
I like that.
go in a way that maybe she shouldn't?" And the answer was, "Are you kidding me? You know that
Actually,
she's
I
a
gotta
black
say,
woman.
I think Abby
She
Phillips
has
is
to
actually really, like,
kind of pull her
cute in Kerry
punches on
Washington way.
that."
When
And
they put
I'm
her
not
side by
sure if
side
that's true.
with
I mean, she was tough.
that,
and
it's
she
just not fair
certainly
to
had
Dana
her
Bash.
moments.
I mean,
But
there
were
is nothing
times
more
when
patronizing
maybe
and
there could have
racist
been more
than saying
follow-up.
that
And
a
I don't
woman
know if
is
that's something that was going through her head
unable,
or not,
a
but I
woman or a
hope it
woman of
wasn't.
color or any person of a different gender or race saying that they can't argue. If you've been in a high school debate room, you've seen people of every height, weight, color, deformity, whatever it may be.
Whoa! Why do you have to bring the West Virginian Hill people into this?
Well, I was talking about myself, but
Hammer
literally
toes.
anyone. You can't see the hammer toes in dress shoes. Anyone can make a good argument. Anyone can put together their thoughts, and you know what? Most importantly, anyone can answer a question.
Yeah.
Or
Except for
dodge a
Kamala,
question.
and it has nothing to do with how many women were on the vice president ticket, how many been on the debate stage,
No.
what her skin color is, what her gender is. Nothing. It's about do you have the substance? And tonight, only Pence came
Only
with the
Pence
substance.
answered. It wasn't even close.
She didn't have it.
I've got to finish this point, and then he was allowed to finish his point well beyond his
Oh
time. I
my
think
God!
people
What a fucking
saw that back
nightmare!
home, and
The
I
man,
think
the man who was actually
Well-
answering questions was allowed to finish answering a question. Oh, what a nightmare! For crying out loud!
Abby Phillip just called Susan Page a racist, sexist, white supremacist because you let him go over the time for a couple of minutes, even though you just went ahead and gave Kamala
because
an
she
extra
delivered-
30 seconds whenever she wanted, and still didn't answer the
She
question.
delivered nothing but unsubstantiated attacks, and when he would actually go over time, he would use it to answer the questions.
Yeah. Hey, we criticized him. We said he should have
invoke
shortened
the fact
He should have
that
shortened
him.
him.
That's racist,
And that's
though.
a
That's racist.
byproduct. That's a byproduct of cable news, which is take as long as you can to make as few points as you can. That way, you get more airtime. Whereas a comedian comes at it. We know this from Phyllis Diller said, "I didn't learn comedy when I learned how to write. I learned comedy when I learned how to edit." If there's a point that you can make in 4 words, don't use 8. So that's a byproduct. I hate to say it of the sort of Bill O'Reilly, Hannity. All of these sort of cable news conservative leaning. You can do the same thing on CNN, but typically speaking, they have more panels. There are 2, 3, 4 people, whereas they have more guest segments. On average, on Fox News, where you take as much time to answer a question as possible. So they would do well to have some comedians or comedic writers, some people who work in the entertainment industry, helping them with some of these preparations. And I don't mean only people who work in the entertainment industry, but you do need someone who understands. When people say, "Oh, why would you say that? Don't you think the office is?" Do you not believe that any presidential candidate in the history of the United States would be incredibly well served to have Mark Twain on their prep team? Of course they would.
Yeah.
Pence needs a little bit of that. That would be the only shortcoming I would have said for tonight. But we do have to get going here pretty soon to the mug. Is there anything else I need to announce here?
No.
Oh, well,
promo code, hashtag.
Promo code is Crowder Debate Stream. It is blackriflecoffee.com/Crowder, by the way. You get, what do you get? Do you get $20?
20%.
20% off your first order. Look at that.
Pretty
Delicious coffee. And please do consider joining up Mug Club. We'll be doing our debate next week, but we do Good Morning Mug Club every weekday morning here up until the election, and you get like 200% more content. And it's listen, we're getting yanked from Facebook. We're getting yanked around on Facebook like Kamala Harris at a mayoral convention. So please do consider joining up. And right now we are going to go exclusively to louderwithcrowder.com/mug club for the Blaze to take some chats and our wrap up. Thank you very much, those on YouTube. But you must go piss off, Lou.